Chapter 1. Beiyuan Xiaoxian, Zhao Country, Qingli County. There was a small village on the banks of a clear stream. It was all alone in the wilderness, and there were no signs of human habitation for miles around. The village was called Xueqi Village, and there were about 100 families in the village. There was a little boy at the east end of the village. He walked along the riverbank with his hands behind his back like an adult. It was already autumn, and the riverbank was filled with reed flowers. A cool breeze blew, and the reed flowers danced in the wind like snow. There was no farmland 1 mile away from the village, and there were only clusters of shrubs. These trees were still lush with branches and leaves, giving off a verdant green color. The reed flowers floated over, covering the shrubs with a white veil, and the shrubs showed their cold and unyielding character. The little boy had no intention of appreciating the beautiful scenery in front of him, and walked aimlessly. He muttered, "My luck was bad and I was struck by lightning in my house. Fortunately, I reincarnated. In this life there is actually such a thing as immortal cultivation." He was not an ordinary child, but a transmigrator. In his previous life, he was an unremarkable office worker in China on Earth, and his name was Wang Daoyuan. Because of a pearl, he transmigrated to this immortal cultivation world. In his previous life, Wang Daoyuan was adopted by an old Taoist priest. He followed the old Taoist priest everywhere to look at feng shui and exorcise evil spirits. Later, this bowl of rice became worse and worse. The old Taoist priest was afraid that he would not be able to make a living in the future, so he sent him to school. Wang Daoyuan did not disappoint the old Taoist priest. He was finally admitted to university, and after graduation, he found a good job in the city. The old Taoist priest followed him and enjoyed a few years of peace and quiet. When Wang Daoyuan was 30 years old, the old Taoist priest, who had lived for an unknown number of years, reached the end of his life. Before the old Taoist priest immortalized, he passed his mantle to him. This mantle included a translucent glass pearl with a tinge of purple in it, as well as some books on feng shui, divination, and the like. Wang Daoyuan buried the old Taoist priest near the thatched cottage where the master and disciple had lived for nearly 20 years. After that, he checked the old Taoist priest's belongings. Wang Daoyuan didn't know what sin this bead had committed, but when he was playing with it, it was suddenly struck by lightning. Wang Daoyuan was also caught in the crossfire and turned into ashes. His last conscious thought was that he had turned into a fist-sized human and was in a dark environment. When he regained his memories, he was already 5 years old. In this life, Wang Daoyuan was born in Clear Creek Village. According to his parents, the villagers of Clear Creek Village weren't ordinary mortals. Instead, they were clansmen of the Wang clan of immortal cultivators located thousands of miles away on Jade Spring Peak. Every year, an immortal from the clan would come to the village to examine the children who had just turned 10 years old to see if they had the aptitude to cultivate. Xueqi Village was located at the edge of the Wang clan's territory. A few hundred kilometers to the east was the territory of the Yao beasts. Therefore, immortals would often come here to protect the village from the invasion of demon beasts. Wang Daoyuan had also seen the immortals from the clan a few times. They were all dressed in white robes with the clan's emblem embroidered in gold on their cuffs, a fish with a dragon head. Before Wang Daoyuan regained his memories from his previous life, his intelligence was no different from an ordinary child's. His parents also told him not to be disrespectful to the immortals, so he didn't dare to get too close to them. Without realizing it, Wang Daoyuan had already walked 2 to 3 kilometers away. Wild beasts and even demon beasts often appeared in the vicinity of the village. However, they were afraid of the immortals, and didn't dare to casually attack the village. However, they still had the guts to attack lone villagers in the vicinity of the village. Wang Daoyuan turned to look at the village and realized that he was a bit far from the village. Usually, the adults repeatedly warned him not to leave the village alone. Otherwise, he would be eaten by wolves. Because he had just regained his memories from his previous life, his mind was in a mess and he had forgotten this point. Now that he realized it, he immediately turned around and returned to the village. A 5-year-old child was completely defenseless against wild beasts. He was an excellent snack. Wang Daoyuan had only taken a few steps when he heard the sound of trees breaking from the bushes about 30 meters behind him. He turned around and saw a black wolf leaping out from the bushes and pouncing towards him. In his previous life, he had followed the old Taoist and learned some things that were said to be immortal cultivation techniques. However, He didn't learn anything from them. He had also learned some martial arts, and 4 or 5 big men couldn't even get close to him. However, he was now only a 5-year-old child. No matter how good his martial arts were, without the support of his physical strength, it was impossible for him to beat a wolf. Wang Daoyuan had lived 2 lives and had followed the old Taoist for 30 years in his previous life. Naturally, he wasn't like ordinary people who didn't know what to do in the face of danger. Knowing that he couldn't beat this wolf, he could only run away and call for help. He ran into the bushes in front of him and shouted for help. The wolf's running speed was far faster than that of ordinary people, and its endurance was extremely strong. How could a 5-year-old child outrun a wolf? Although Wang Daoyuan was running in the bushes and relying on the dense branches of the bushes to block the black wolf's calf-sized body, the distance between him and the wolf was constantly shortening. In less than 20 breaths, the black wolf was less than 2 feet away from him. The black wolf suddenly pounced forward, opened its mouth, and bit Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. In my previous life, I was struck by lightning and was reincarnated into the cultivation world. I wanted to make a name for myself, but I didn't expect to die in the mouth of this beast like a coward. At this critical moment, a black shadow rushed out from the side and pounced on the black wolf, directly hitting its waist. At this time, the black wolf's saliva had dripped onto Wang Daoyuan, but it was knocked back more than 3 meters by the black shadow. The black shadow landed on the ground. At this time, Wang Daoyuan recognized that it was his dog, Dahe. Dahe bared its teeth and growled threateningly, staring at the black wolf. All wolves had a copper head, iron brain, and tofu waist. The black wolf's waist was hit and injured. At this moment, its posture was a little strange, but it did not leave. It bared its teeth and showed its strength to Dahe. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan immediately hid behind Dahe, picked up a stone about the size of his fist, and was ready to throw it at the black wolf. Although the black wolf was hit by Dahe and its waist was injured, it still had most of its fighting strength. Just now it did not fight with Dahe head-on, so it did not know the strength of Dahe. It was unwilling to leave like this. Suddenly, the black wolf took the initiative and rushed to Dahe. Wang Daoyuan immediately threw the stone in his hand at the black wolf's head. Although the force was very small, the black wolf still dodged subconsciously. Dahe seized the opportunity and pounced on the black wolf and bit the back of its neck. The wolf and the dog bit together. Dahe was much weaker than the black wolf in size and strength, but the black wolf's waist was injured, and Dahe took the initiative to bite the back of its neck. After biting for 30 or 40 breaths, the wolf and the dog separated, with a few more wounds on their bodies. They were evenly matched. The black wolf panted for a while and was about to pounce again. When it saw Wang Daoyuan holding another stone in his hand, it hesitated. If it continued to fight, the black wolf could indeed win, but it would also be seriously injured. It was a lone wolf, and serious injury meant death. It was absolutely not worth it to be seriously injured in order to eat such a little kid. The black wolf made a forward movement, and Dahe was also ready to fight back. Wang Daoyuan threw the stone in his hand again, but the black wolf turned around and ran away. The man and the dog were a little confused. When they came to their senses, Dahe got up and was about to chase it. Wang Daoyuan said, "Dahe, don't chase it. Let's go home quickly." As soon as the black wolf ran a few feet away, a long blue sword fell from the sky and nailed the black wolf to the ground. The black wolf struggled a few times and stopped moving. New book, please collect and recommend. Chapter 2. An immortal in a white robe appeared. He walked to the black wolf, pulled out a long sword and asked, "What's your name, little guy?" Before Wang Daoyuan could answer, Dahe shouted at the immortal timidly. Wang Daoyuan was afraid of angering the immortal, so he quickly stopped Dahe and answered respectfully, "My surname is Wang, and I haven't been given a name yet. My parents call me Erwa." The immortal picked up the black wolf's body with one hand and touched the bag at his waist. The black wolf, which was as big as a calf, disappeared instantly. He said with a smile, "You deserve to be a member of the Wang family. You have guts. You didn't panic when you encountered a wolf with some spiritual intelligence. You forced the black wolf to retreat with only a black dog. You are so brave and resourceful at such a young age. If you can embark on the road of cultivation, your future will be limitless. This dog is also good. It already has some spiritual intelligence. If it had lived in the family since childhood, it might have been a first-level spirit beast. After that, he turned and walked to Xueqi village. Wang Daoyuan and Dahe followed him respectfully. At this time, Wang Daoyuan dared to look at the immortal. The immortal carried a long sword on his back and a gourd on his waist. His hair was messy, and his white robe had not been washed for many years. Because of the special material, it had not changed color, but it was obviously covered with dirt. From time to time, there was a strange smell mixed with rancid and alcohol. The immortal sent Wang Daoyuan home. Wang Daoyuan's parents were worried when they saw that Dahe was injured and Erwa was in rags. When they saw that they were brought back by the immortal, they immediately imagined that Erwa and Dahe were attacked by wild beasts and were saved by the immortal. They knelt to the immortal and said, "Thank you for saving my Erwa." The immortal waved his hand and a gust of wind blew over, helping the two of them up. He said, "This is not my work. This kid and your black dog worked together to chase away a wolf. When I arrived, the wolf was already about to escape. Without me, this kid would be fine." Seeing such a method, Wang Daoyuan was very envious and wished he could start cultivating immediately. It was a pity that he was only 5 years old, far from the age of having his spiritual roots tested. He asked tentatively, "Immortal, can I cultivate now?" The deity said without hesitation, "How old are you?" In the cultivation world, it was not unreasonable for children to start cultivating at the age of 10. Firstly, children before the age of 10 were not intelligent enough and could not fully understand the knowledge of cultivation. Secondly, children's bodies were too weak and could not bear the power of spiritual energy. However, seeing that you were able to deal with that black wolf without panicking in the face of danger, your intelligence should be enough. Although your physique looks good, it doesn't necessarily meet the requirements. After all, you should only be 5 or 6 years old. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly said, "I'm determined to cultivate. I hope Immortal can grant my wish." "I'll give you a chance then." The Immortal took out a book and said, "This is the Meridian Opening Technique, the most basic cultivation technique for immortal cultivators. It is used to open up the 8 extraordinary meridians. If you can sense Qi, it means that you have spirit roots and can cultivate. If you can't sense Qi, then you don't have spirit roots and are just immortal. I have to remind you that although your physique is stronger than your peers, you may not be able to withstand the impact of spiritual energy. If your body can't withstand it, it may leave behind hidden injuries or even directly become a cripple. Do you still want to cultivate?" Wang Daoyuan firmly replied, "I'm willing." Under the guidance of the immortal, Wang Daoyuan began to cultivate the Meridian Opening Technique. 2 hours later, Wang Daoyuan felt a weak warm current in his abdomen and told the immortal. The immortal hiccuped and said, "Don't talk nonsense. You can sense Qi in 2 hours. Either I was drunk and heard wrongly, or you peed in your pants. Otherwise, where did the warm current come from?" Although he said that, the immortal still carefully checked Wang Daoyuan's body and found that Wang Daoyuan had really cultivated a trace of spiritual energy. He was immediately stunned. After a long time, the immortal came back to his senses and asked, "Do you feel any discomfort in your body?" After Wang Daoyuan replied that he didn't feel any discomfort, the immortal didn't say anything else. He carried Wang Daoyuan and began to run, leaving Wang Daoyuan's parents and elder brother dumbfounded. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan's parents had learned about cultivation in school when he was young. They knew that their son had caught the eye of the immortal in the clan and was able to embark on the path of cultivation. Thus, they weren't too worried. After a day of trekking, the immortal brought Wang Daoyuan back to the Jade Spring Peak and reported the situation to the elders. After the elders' appraisal, Wang Daoyuan cultivated the Meridian Opening Technique and sensed Qi. He had officially stepped into the first realm of cultivation, the Meridian Opening Realm. A 5-year-old cultivator was unheard of in the 600 years of history of the Wang clan, let alone seeing one. Wang Daoyuan officially entered the Wang clan. The Wang clan's name was Inheriting the Will of the Ancestors, Upholding the Tao and Enlightening Virtue. It just so happened that his name was Dao. Under his insistence, the clan named him Wang Daoyuan. The elders gave Wang Daoyuan special treatment and gave him whatever he needed. Wang Daoyuan didn't disappoint. At the age of 8, he opened all 8 meridians and entered the 8th level of the Meridian Opening Realm. At the age of 9, His 8 meridians opened to his dantian and he reached the peak of the meridian opening realm. At the age of 10, he guided qi into his dantian and officially stepped into the qi refining realm. At this time, people of the same age only knew what cultivation was, and Wang Daoyuan had already entered the qi refining realm. This was a blatant snatch. However, good times didn't last long. At the age of 10, the qi in one's organs was sufficient and the spirit root was stable. It was already time to test the spirit root. Wang Daoyuan was secretly taken by the elders to test his spirit root. On the qi testing disc, 5 pillars of red, yellow, white, black, and green light appeared, and they were all 2 inches tall. The qi testing disc was a special magic tool used to test spirit roots. The spirit root of the person being tested would appear on the qi testing disc. Red, black, white, yellow, and green represented the 5 elements of the spirit root. The total height of the spirit root was only 1 foot. Most people could only reach 9 inches, and very few could reach 1 foot. The elders were almost angered to death by the test results. The precious egg that they had carefully protected for 5 years, a cultivation genius, actually had 5 spirit roots. Moreover, they had 5 balanced spirit roots of the 5 elements. He didn't have any special abilities and was a proper cultivation waste. His previous cultivation speed was extremely fast because he was born with Xiantian Qi. By borrowing Xiantian Qi to cultivate, his cultivation speed was faster. However, Wang Daoyuan seemed to have a bit more Xiantian Qi, causing his early cultivation speed to be comparable to celestial spirit roots. Celestial spirit roots were a single spirit root, and the height of the spirit root was no less than 9 inches. As he grew older, his Xiantian Qi would gradually dissipate, and his cultivation speed would become slower and slower. When he was 12 years old, his Xiantian Qi would completely disappear. The Xiantian Qi's increase in cultivation speed would also disappear. From a genius to a waste, Wang Daoyuan's position in the clan took a turn for the worse. Fortunately, this was a cultivation clan and not a sect. What was the most important thing in a cultivation clan? Bloodline inheritance. In the clan, any clansman with a spiritual root was a valuable asset. As long as one had spirit roots, no matter how bad, the probability of having a child with spirit roots after marrying an ordinary person was about 20%. If both parents had spirit roots, the probability of having a child with spirit roots was about 50%. If both parents were ordinary people, the probability of having a child with spirit roots was about 1 in 10,000. If both parents were ordinary people, but their direct ancestors had spirit roots, such as Wang Daoyuan's parents, who were descendants of cultivators, the probability of having a child with spirit roots was about 1 in 100 to 1 in 1,000. The further the generation, the lower the probability. There wouldn't be any obvious difference between a child with 5 spirit roots and celestial spirit roots. Therefore, after being found to have 5 spirit roots, Wang Daoyuan didn't receive any harsh reprimand and continued to cultivate in the Immortal's Cave on Jade Spring Peak. However, he was no longer provided with additional resources like before. Newcomer's new book. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 3. In the blink of an eye, 6 years had passed. Halfway up Jade Spring Peak, in a cave by a stream, a handsome young man sat cross-legged. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was long and even. Wisps of blue aura came from his mouth, nose, skin, and other parts of his body, gradually converging into his 12 main meridians, then through his 8 extraordinary meridians, entering the Guanyuan point 3 inches below his navel. The Guanyuan point was also known as the Dantian, and was the foundation of a cultivator. Half an hour later, a burst of aura erupted from his body, spreading in all directions. At this moment, the young man had already opened his eyes. His face was full of joy as he muttered to himself, "Hard work pays off. I've finally broken through to the 4th level of Qi disciple." The young man was Wang Daoyuan. He was 16 years old, and his cultivation had just broken through to the 4th level of Qi disciple. Thanks to the rush, he could be considered above average among his peers. After breaking through to the 4th level of Qi disciple, he could begin to cultivate his divine sense. The so-called divine sense was the power of the soul. The power of the divine sense was innate, and the strength of the divine sense was closely related to the strength of the soul. Cultivating the divine sense was also a process of strengthening the soul. For cultivators, even if they didn't deliberately cultivate their divine sense, as their cultivation level increased, their divine sense cultivation would also gradually increase. Of course, with the cultivation method, the cultivation of the divine sense would increase even faster. The relationship between the cultivation of the divine sense and the soul was like the relationship between the cultivation of spiritual energy and the physical body. Wang Daoyuan grew up on Jade Spring Peak. For more than 10 years, what he learned and saw was all about cultivation, so he naturally knew the importance of the divine sense. Thus, after consolidating his cultivation a little, he hurriedly rushed to the hidden scripture tower. The hidden scripture tower was on the west side of Jade Dragon Spring, and Jade Dragon Spring was the spiritual eye of Jade Spring Peak's spiritual vein. Jade Spring Peak's name also came from Jade Dragon Spring. Beside Jade Dragon Spring, there was a 1,000-year-old pine. The hidden scripture tower was under this pine. In front of the hidden scripture tower, there was an old man with white hair and beard. He was currently lying on a deck chair, pretending to be asleep. The old man's name was Wang Jiza. He was Wang Daoyuan's great-grandfather, the Wang family's grand elder, and the only remaining member of the Ji generation. The Wang family's Ji generation, one generation every 50 years. Even the youngest member of the successor generation was over 120 years old and had long passed away. The lifespan of an ordinary person is no more than 100 years. Qi disciple stage cultivators have unobstructed meridians and powerful qi and blood, so they won't fall sick. Thus, their lifespan is slightly longer than that of an ordinary person, 120 years. Foundation establishment cultivators 240 years, Zifu disciples 500 years, Jindan cultivators 1,000 years. Wang Jiza's situation was special. It was said that he used to be a foundation establishment cultivator. When he went out, he was plotted against and was almost crippled. He desperately fled back to his family with serious injuries and eventually saved his life. However, his cultivator fell to the peak of Qi disciple and could not make any further progress. Although he didn't have the strength of a foundation establishment cultivator, he was still a foundation establishment cultivator. His lifespan was longer than that of a Qi refinement cultivator, so he was still alive. However, this Taigong's complexion was ruddy, his eyes were bright, and his breath was calm and long. He did not look like he was seriously injured at all. After Wang Jiza's cultivation realm fell, he had been guarding the Tripitaka block and did not care about worldly affairs. Clan cultivators, regardless of their cultivation level, would only greet each other according to their age. Facing an elder of the great-grandfather's generation, Wang Daoyuan naturally did not dare to slight him. Tidying up his clothes, he walked in front of Wang Jiza and bowed respectfully, saying, "I am Wang Daoyuan. Greetings, Taigong." "It's you, little fellow." Wang Jiza opened his eyes and said amiably, "Not bad, you've broken through to Qi disciple level 4. Although your breath has just stabilized, there is no sense of emptiness. Your foundation is very solid. Looks like you've put in a lot of hard work. On the path of cultivation, if you have good talent, it's just that the path is easier to walk. How far you can walk depends on your perseverance and luck. Although your talent is not good, if you work hard, it's not necessarily impossible for you to achieve something." Wang Daoyuan bowed once more. "Thank you for your teachings, Taigong." Wang Jiza waved his hand, saying, "There's no need to be so formal. You've just broken through to Qi disciple level 4. You're here to find a way to cultivate your divine sense, right? Our Wang family is a small family and we don't have any powerful techniques. There's only one way to cultivate your divine sense, and it's with me. Write it down and go back to cultivate. Remember, don't spread it. Learning this method requires 100 clan contribution points. You're not of age yet, so don't bother." Finishing, he took out a jade slip and handed it to Wang Daoyuan. Clan contribution points are the currency used within the Wang family. They are given out according to the clan members' contributions to the family. They can also be exchanged with spirit stones. One spirit stone can be exchanged for 1 contribution point. Wang Daoyuan placed the jade slip between his eyebrows. A moment later, a scripture appeared in his mind. It's called Soul Forging Art. Holding the jade slip with both hands, he handed it back to Wang Jiza. He bowed again, saying, "I've remembered it." Wang Jiza put away the jade slip, saying, "You're learning the path of talismans. For you, your divine sense is more important. The strength of your divine sense directly affects the success rate of talisman crafting. Go back and cultivate well. If you have any questions, you can come here and ask me." After the Wang family's disciples reached the age of 14, They have to learn the 100 arts of cultivation without affecting their cultivation. Clan members like Wang Daoyuan have no hope of reaching foundation establishment. Most of them put their energy into the 100 arts of cultivation to earn resources and prepare for the next generation. Wang Daoyuan is no exception. At the age of 14, he started to learn the 100 arts of cultivation from the clan's elders. After learning a few crafts, Wang Daoyuan's talent in alchemy, talisman crafting, planting and so on are all pretty good. However, a person's energy is limited. It's impossible to learn more than one craft. After weighing the pros and cons, Wang Daoyuan finally chose to learn talisman crafting. The benefits of talisman crafting are far less than alchemy, but talismans can directly increase one's fighting strength. He knows that with his talent, if he wants to qualify for foundation establishment, he can only do his best to increase his cultivation. He doesn't have much time to cultivate spells. His own fighting strength won't be too high. He can only make up for it with external help. Talismans are the only method that can directly increase one's fighting strength without relying on one's own cultivation. Using talismans only requires a bit of spiritual power or spiritual power. Even a chi refining cultivator can easily use a second-rank talisman with power comparable to a foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, the cost of talisman crafting is much lower than alchemy and tool crafting. It's suitable for a poor person like Wang Daoyuan. After making his choice, Wang Daoyuan follows the clan's elder who is good at talisman crafting, ninth uncle Wang Zhida, to learn talisman crafting. In the past 2 years, he learned to craft talisman paper with several kinds of spiritual herbs, spirit ink with demon beast blood essence or cinnabar, recognize all kinds of common first-rank talismans, and practice drawing talismans. Of course, he only practiced drawing talismans with mortal brushes, ink, paper and inkstone. Talisman paper and spirit ink can be sold for money. Naturally, it's impossible to let an apprentice squander them. Wang Daoyuan is not an obedient child. After a year of learning, he learned how to craft talisman paper and spirit ink, and basically mastered common first-rank talismans. He also asked a clan member who went out to do business to buy a poor-quality talisman brush, and officially started to craft talismans. Maybe it's because he learned talisman crafting from the old Taoist in his previous life. But Wang Daoyuan's talent in talisman crafting was much stronger than imagined. In only 3 days, he successfully crafted a first-rank low-grade talisman. Wang Daoyuan returned to his cave and immediately started to comprehend the soul-forging art. After all, it's related to how far he can go on the path of talisman crafting in the future. He can't ignore it. The content recorded in the jade slip is not much, only about 5,000 words. The first 1,000 words describe some basic knowledge and usage skills of divine sense. The next 1,000 words is the main text, recording the specific method of cultivating the soul. The last 3,000 words are the cultivation experiences of the clan's elders. This is also a reflection of the clan's foundation. With these experiences, cultivators will take fewer detours. After browsing, Wang Daoyuan restrained his mind and started to practice the first step of divine sense cultivation. Introspection. A person's soul is hidden in the Naiwan palace between the eyebrows, which is also called the Sea of Consciousness. Divine sense cultivation is carried out in the Sea of Consciousness. Therefore, before cultivating divine sense, one must first look into the Sea of Consciousness and find a place to cultivate. According to the method recorded in the soul-forging art, he restrained his mind and focused on the Naiwan palace. In just a moment, Wang Daoyuan saw a gray world. Looking in all directions, it was gray everywhere, as if there was no end. This is the legendary Sea of Consciousness. Looking up, he suddenly discovered that the bead passed down by the clan in his previous life is actually in his Sea of Consciousness. Using his divine sense to explore the bead, he actually entered the interior of the bead, which unexpectedly formed a space of its own. This is a hemispherical space, the ground is about 10 mu of land, and there is a thin amount of spirit energy in the space. Outside the space, there is a gray fog everywhere. Chapter 4. In his previous life, this bead had been damaged by Wang Daoyuan many times. He had cut it with a knife, burned it with fire, and smashed it with stones. But it was still intact. Other than that, there was nothing special about it. He didn't expect it to be a space treasure. Since this space is in the bead, let's call it the space of the spirit bead. Wang Daoyuan said to himself. At the edge of the space of the spirit bead, there was a small thatched hut. This thatched hut was ordinary, but it gave Wang Daoyuan a very familiar feeling. When his divine sense entered the thatched hut and saw the furnishings, Wang Daoyuan was stunned. This was clearly the house where he and the old Taoist lived for many years in his previous life. It was in this thatched hut that he was struck by lightning when he was counting the old Taoist's belongings. In the middle of the house, there was an old square table. Behind the wall, there was an offering table. On the offering table, there was a memorial tablet with the words, "Late Master Wang Gongwei Yan's Memorial Tablet," written on it. Everything was the same as before, but the old Taoist had long been immortalized, and he had been reincarnated into another world. On the square table, there were a few old thread-bound books left behind by the old Taoist. Wang Daoyuan's mind moved, and one of the thread-bound books disappeared from the space and appeared in the hands of the original body at the same time. After that, the book disappeared from his hands and reappeared on the square table in the space. It was obvious that the space of the spirit bead could store items. Wang Daoyuan was very excited. A space of 10 acres, hidden in his sea of consciousness. Even if it could only store items, it was a treasure. Wang Daoyuan tried to put his body in, but no matter how he urged his divine sense, there was no movement. It seemed that he couldn't enter the space. After cultivating in the family for more than 10 years and reading all kinds of books, Wang Daoyuan had a lot of knowledge about space treasures. There were many space treasures in the immortal cultivation world, and the lowest level was the storage bag. The storage bag space was not big, and there was a limit to its capacity. If it stored too heavy items, it would cause the space in the bag to collapse. However, the storage bag was only the lowest level space treasure. The principle was to use secret techniques or refining inscriptions to distort space, turning a small space into a large space. A second-tier blacksmith could refine it, and there were no special requirements for the materials. As long as it was sturdy, the price was also very low. The commonly seen storage bags on the market were only 10 feet square and could store items weighing 300 to 500 kilograms. They were worth a few spirit stones. Some of the better storage bags were 20 feet square and could store items weighing 1,000 kilograms. They cost dozens of spirit stones. This kind of storage bag was relatively rare and was very difficult to obtain for chi refinement cultivators. It was commonly used by foundation establishment cultivators. If he wanted more space and heavier things, the demand for refining materials would be greatly increased. The cost-performance ratio was far better than carrying a few more small storage bags. The more advanced ones were called advanced space treasures, such as interspatial rings and interspatial bracelets. There was no weight limit for storing items, and the internal space was usually more than 5 square meters. Refining this type of spatial treasure required materials with spatial attributes, such as void stone, void willow, and so on. In addition, high-grade spatial treasures had extremely high requirements for the crafting skills. There were very few craftsmen who could craft high-grade spatial treasures. Thus, these types of treasures were extremely rare, and most Zifu disciples were unable to obtain them. The most advanced ones were the top-grade spatial treasures. The internal space was a complete small world, and living creatures could live and reproduce in it. However, this kind of treasure only existed in legends. It was refined by immortals who had transcended reincarnation by collecting natural small worlds. As for the refining method, it was even more unheard of. In addition, there was a special spatial treasure, Spirit Beast Bag. Although the Spirit Beast Bag could also store living creatures, it was not the same as the top-grade spatial treasures. The Spirit Beast Bag could only ensure that living creatures would not die. It did not even have space to move, let alone reproduce. The Spirit Beast Bag was generally a low-grade spatial treasure on the same level as the storage bag, but it could carry more weight and cost more. There were also a few high-level spatial treasures. The space of the spirit bead was larger than that of ordinary interspatial rings. Moreover, it was not like the interspatial rings, where the inside was only pitch black. Instead, there was clearly visible soil and thin spiritual energy. Although there was no sun, moon, or stars, it was not dark. The brightness was like the daytime in the outside world when it was rainy. Wang Daoyuan guessed that the space in the spiritual pearl was definitely more advanced than the ordinary interspatial rings. It might even be the legendary top-grade spatial treasure with a small world inside. In order to verify this guess, Wang Daoyuan caught a few insects outside the cave and put them into the space in the spiritual pearl. Then, he took out a few spiritual grains from the storage bag given by the family and planted them in the soil in the space. After observing for several hours, the insects were still alive and kicking, which meant that animals could survive in the space. But the spiritual grains were still motionless. One day later, the spiritual grains sprouted. The insects were gnawing on the seedlings of the spiritual grains. Wang Daoyuan conveniently destroyed them. Spiritual grains could be planted in the space, and spiritual insects could be bred. This was the legendary top-grade spatial treasure. Wang Daoyuan thought happily. The space in the spiritual pearl had 10 mu of spiritual fields. Although the spiritual energy was thin and only suitable for planting low-grade spiritual plants such as spiritual grains, it could not be underestimated. Spiritual grains were generally about 200 caddies per mu. 10 caddies of spiritual grains could be sold for 1 spiritual stone. 10 mu of spiritual fields could produce 2,000 caddies of spiritual grains per season, which could be sold for 200 spiritual stones. Spiritual grains could be harvested in 3 months after planting seeds. Harvesting 4 seasons in a year, that was 800 spiritual stones. Few cultivators below the foundation establishment stage could have such a high income. Rounding it off, that would be, cough cough, low key, low key. With a large amount of resources, his gloomy cultivation path had a glimmer of hope. Thinking of this, Wang Daoyuan could not help but hum a song from his previous life. Today is a good day. After a moment of complacency, he could not help but feel sorry for the old Taoist in his previous life. With his current understanding of cultivation, he knew that the old Taoist was indeed a cultivator, but only at the 2nd or 3rd level of Qi disciple. The cultivation method he practiced was also the basic Qi disciple cultivation method. If the old Taoist could reach the 4th level of Qi disciple and cultivate divine sense, he would be able to discover the secret of the spiritual pearl. In the blue planet, where spiritual energy was almost non-existent, the old Taoist could enter the Qi disciple realm by himself. With the large amount of resources provided by the spiritual pearl, he could enter the Qi disciple realm without any difficulty. While feeling sorry for the old Taoist, he thought of the old Taoist's kindness in raising him and teaching him. His eyes could not help but blur. The past was vivid in his mind. When he was just beginning to remember things, the old Taoist began to teach him wholeheartedly. At the age of 5, he began to learn how to draw talismans, laying a solid foundation for becoming a talisman master in this life. At the age of 6, he taught him martial arts. At the age of 7, he taught him the ways of the world, such as being kind to others, shooting the bird that pokes its head out, and not showing off one's wealth. Thinking of not showing off one's wealth, Wang Daoyuan's thoughts diverged. He thought of a child carrying gold in the market, the crime of possessing a jade. The ivory burns the body. Unconsciously, his back was drenched in cold sweat. The Wang clan was only an ordinary foundation establishment clan. They only had one foundation establishment cultivator, Wang Jian. In the cultivation world, they could only be considered a low-level power. They were only stronger than loose cultivators and Qi disciple clans. With such little strength, they had the legendary top-notch spatial treasure. Not to mention the top-notch spatial treasure, even if they had an ordinary yin and yang ring, if it was leaked, the Wang clan would be exterminated. If he wanted to live, he absolutely could not leak any information. As a result, Wang Daoyuan's dream of selling spirit grains to earn a fortune of spirit stones was shattered. Because the price of spirit grains was low, but they were essential for low-level cultivators, the spirit grains produced by the various powers were all consumed internally. There was very little that was taken out for sale. Once Wang Daoyuan's thousands of kilograms of spirit grains entered the markets around the Wang clan, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. If there were any abnormalities, it would attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Following the vine to the melon, it would be very easy to find the problem with the Wang clan and eventually find him. At that time, not only would his life be hard to protect, but his clan would also very likely be implicated. In order to ensure the safety of himself and his clan, he must not let others notice anything unusual about him. He must not attract the attention of outsiders. Holding a treasure but not being able to use it, this feeling was really like, how much worry can a gentleman have, just like a group of eunuchs going to a brothel. Chapter 5. After all, Wang Daoyuan is a transmigrator and has memories from his previous life. He pondered for a while and thought of a golden investment quote from his previous life: "You can't put all your eggs in one basket." Since he can't sell large amounts of spirit grains, then he'll plant something else. Selling a variety of spirit herbs will have a much smaller impact than only selling spirit grains. The Wang family has 50 mu of spirit fields scattered throughout Jade Spring Peak. There aren't many types of spirit herbs planted. Among them, there are only spirit grains, yellow cloud grass, scarlet blood ginseng and a dozen other types of spirit herbs. Yellow cloud grass is the main ingredient for making grade 1 talismans. The rest of the spirit herbs are ingredients for refining spirit clearing pills, spirit gathering pills, rejuvenation pills and other common pills used by Qi disciple stage cultivators. As a member of the Wang family, and with his talent for talisman making, it's very likely that he'll become one of the pillars of the family's finances. One of them. Wanting to get the seeds of grade 1 spirit herbs shouldn't be too difficult. Having thought of a countermeasure, Wang Daoyuan's heart that's like a group of eunuchs going to a brothel, once again heated up. Unable to hold back the excitement in his heart, he immediately ran out of the cave and went straight to the residence of the elder in charge of the spirit fields. The elder in charge of the spirit fields is called Wang Shui, ranked 12th in the Shui generation. He's the youngest and most talented elder in the family. Not even 40 yet. He broke through Qi Disciple Stage 9 at the age of 25 and reached Qi Disciple Peak at the age of 28. He can break through foundation establishment at any time. However, the Wang family doesn't have a stable way to obtain foundation establishment pills. Without foundation establishment pills, the risk of breaking through by force is too great. Failing to break through means 9 deaths. Firstly, he's still young. As long as he breaks through before his qi and blood declines at the age of 70, it won't affect his chances of breaking through. Secondly, Qi disciple stage is the stage of laying down the foundation. The more you accumulate, the more solid your foundation is and the higher your chances of breaking through. Because of this, Wang Shui still hasn't broken through by force. In order to take care of this elder who's most likely to break through to foundation establishment, the family gave him the most leisurely position, general manager of the spirit fields. His main task is to check the output of the spirit fields every year. As long as it's within a reasonable range, there's nothing for him to do. The miscellaneous work is handled by the managers at various levels. This general manager is very famous in the family, but Wang Daoyuan has never seen him before. Because Wang Shui was dissolute and loved freedom, and it was difficult for him to improve his cultivation, he would wander around outside when he was free. He would only return to the mountain when there were important matters in the family. It was already the end of the year, and the family would check on the income and expenditure of the year. The chief steward of the spiritual fields had to be present, so Wang Shui was most likely on the mountain. Wang Daoyuan arrived at Wang Shui's abode. Just as he was about to knock on the door, he heard a lazy yet somewhat familiar voice. "Come in." Wang Daoyuan pushed the door open and entered the cave. Other than a stone couch, there were only wine jars, wine pots, and wine gourds. A white-robed man was lying on the stone platform with his legs crossed. He held a wine gourd in his hand and was pouring wine into his mouth. Wang Daoyuan was a little depressed when he saw the face of the man in white. It was the immortal who had brought him up the mountain. He did not expect that the famous genius elder and his sloppy guide were actually the same person. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly bowed. Junior Wang Daoyuan greets 12th uncle. Wang Shui did not get up. He waved his hand and a wine gourd hanging on the wall flew towards Wang Daoyuan. "It's you, kid. Don't bother with those empty words. Drink first and talk later." Although Wang Daoyuan had never drunk wine before, it was not good to refuse a request. He took the wine gourd and drank a big mouthful. As the wine entered his throat, it was like swallowing a ball of fire. The fire burned down his throat. The burning sensation gradually subsided and turned into a warm current that flowed into his dantian. His cultivation had actually increased a little. This mouthful of wine was comparable to a day of meditation. After tasting the benefits, he raised his head and drank all the wine in the gourd. He felt like he had fallen into a furnace, but he did not feel drunk at all. "Ha ha ha, good kid. Good alcohol tolerance. As expected of the person I chose. Your future is limitless." Wang Daoyuan had a helpless expression. "So you judge a cultivator's future based on alcohol tolerance?" Wang Shui sat up from the stone couch and asked, "Kid, why did you come to find me?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I want to grow spirit herbs and earn some extra money, so I came to find 12th uncle to ask for the seeds of rank 1 spirit herbs." Wang Shui patted the storage bag at his waist and took out a dozen egg-sized cloth bags. "The clan only has these dozen types of rank 1 spirit herbs. Take whatever you want." Wang Daoyuan thought, Just now, 12th uncle directly took out a gourd of precious spirit wine to entertain a junior with low aptitude like me. I drank it all in one gulp. Not only did 12th uncle not feel distressed, he even laughed heartily. It can be seen that he is a forthright and generous person. Rather than politely decline, it is better to generously take them all. Thus he took all the dozen bags of seeds and said, "Since it is like this, then I won't be polite." Sure enough, as Wang Daoyuan expected, after he put away all the seeds, Wang Shi laughed loudly. "Good kid. As expected of someone who doesn't suffer losses. You have a temper like mine." Finished speaking, he took out a piece of paper from his storage bag and threw it to Wang Daoyuan. "Seeing that your alcohol tolerance is good, this is the recipe for the scarlet blood wine you just drank. Don't forget to give me a few jars of good wine." Spirit wine recipes were extremely precious. Not only did the recipe need the ratio of the spirit wine's ingredients, it also needed the production of the distiller's yeast as well as the brewing process. Distiller's yeast production was the most difficult. Creating a spirit wine recipe from nothing consumed a lot of manpower and material resources. It was much harder than developing a pill recipe of the same rank. Wang Daoyuan took the recipe and cupped his hands. "Thank you, 12th uncle. I definitely won't forget you when I brew good wine. I won't disturb you drinking anymore and will go back to grow spirit herbs." Wang Shui nodded. "Running away after taking advantage of me. You are a good seedling to go out and explore. Scram, don't forget the jars of scarlet blood wine you owe me." Wang Daoyuan hurriedly said, "How would I dare to go back on 12th uncle's debt?" Returning to the cave, Wang Daoyuan's consciousness entered the space and planted the seeds in the space's spirit field. As the master of the space in the spirit bead, Wang Daoyuan didn't need to use a hoe to dig holes and sow seeds. He only needed to use the power of his consciousness and small holes would appear in the spirit field. He then used his consciousness to control the sowing, burying, and watering. It was just that the power of his consciousness was a bit large. 10 mu of spirit fields, 4 mu of spirit grains, 2 mu of yellow cloud grass, 1 mu of scarlet blood ginseng were planted. The remaining 3 mu of land were divided equally among other spirit herbs. Because he lacked experience in planting, Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to plant all the seeds he just got. He only planted a bit of most of the spirit herbs to accumulate experience. Because he learned how to make talismans, he was very familiar with yellow cloud grass, so he planted a bit more. Moreover, he knew how to make talisman paper, so he could produce and sell it himself. He could make talisman paper and then refine talismans. This could increase his income and he didn't need to directly sell yellow cloud grass, reducing the risk of being noticed. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Scarlet blood ginseng was the main raw material for scarlet blood wine. Wang Shui's wine recipe mentioned some methods to grow scarlet blood ginseng, so Wang Daoyuan planted a bit more. The spirit grains he planted before had already sprouted in the space, so Wang Daoyuan also planted a bit more. 4 mu of spirit grains. In the future, he would eat spirit grains every day and sell the rest in batches. It shouldn't cause too much of a stir. After planting the spirit herbs, Wang Daoyuan observed the spirit grain sprouts he planted before. The spirit grain sprouts were quite similar to the dog's tail grass in his previous life, but they were thicker and the leaves were straight like swords. These spirit grain sprouts were already half a foot tall. They were growing quite fast. Wang Daoyuan reacted. This wasn't right. It had only been a day and a half since the spirit grain sprouts. In such a short time, the spirit grain sprouts had grown half a foot tall. Chapter 6. Although Wang Daoyuan hasn't personally planted spirit grains, he has seen pigs run even if he hasn't eaten pork. He also knows that it takes 10 to 20 days for a spirit grain to sprout half a foot tall. There are only 2 possibilities he can think of. 1. The space of the spirit pearl is extremely suitable for growing spirit grains. 2. The flow of time in the space of the spirit pearl is different from the outside world. It's not easy to judge whether the space of the spirit pearl is suitable for growing spirit grains, but the flow of time is easy to judge. He found 2 sticks of incense, lit them, and placed one in the outside world and the other in the space of the spirit pearl. When the incense in the space has burned out, only 1/10 of the incense in the outside world was left. The result shows that the flow of time in the space of the spirit pearl is 10 times faster than the outside world. Oh my! I'm going to be rich! Wang Daoyuan let out an excited roar. Previously, he calculated the income from selling spirit grains and multiplied it by 10, which is 8,000 spirit stones a year, far more than an ordinary late-stage foundation establishment cultivator who doesn't have the 100 arts of cultivation. The entire Wang clan's annual income is no more than 20 to 30,000 spirit stones, but that is used to feed the dozens of cultivators in the clan. Wang Daoyuan's 8,000 spirit stones are all his own. In this way, the spirit grains ripen once every 9 days, 40 ripens in a year, and 4 mu of spirit fields harvested 32,000 pounds of spirit grains. Wang Daoyuan cried. How can he sell them? After this season, he can't plant so many spirit grains. He can't sell them, eat them, or give them away. He didn't expect that there will be a day when he has too many resources. Ever since he was tested with 5 spirit roots, his cultivation resources have been insufficient. Therefore, he planned his future path to become a spirit talisman master and earn resources through talisman crafting. Relying on the accumulation of his previous life and his hard work in this life, he can easily craft a middle-grade talisman. He is confident that he can become a second-grade talisman master around the age of 30. After becoming a second-grade talisman master, it will be easy to earn spirit stones. With enough resources, he has a high chance of reaching the peak of qi refining before the age of 70. He also doesn't expect to be able to obtain a foundation establishment pill. The auction price of a foundation establishment pill is less than 50,000 spirit stones. Even if the Wang clan is poor, it will be difficult to buy it. Moreover, even if the clan buys it, it will be distributed to the clan's foundation establishment seedlings. Even if he was given a foundation establishment pill, the probability of him successfully reaching foundation establishment was very low. His original plan was to do his best and forcefully break through before the age of 70. Now that he had the spirit orb space, resources were no longer a problem. Wealth, Dharma, companions, and land. Wealth was the most important thing. As long as there were enough resources, no matter how poor one's aptitude was, they could still forcefully build a foundation. The hard conditions had changed, and the original plan was no longer reasonable. Wang Daoyuan made a new plan for his future. Setting a small goal, first strive. No, first cultivate to the peak of qi refinement. Considering his own aptitude, the most optimistic estimate was that he would have to wait until he was around 30 years old to achieve this small goal. After that, he still had 40 years to prepare for breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. Now that the small goal had been set, he still needed to consider how to proceed. According to the rules of the clan, before the children of the clan reached adulthood at the age of 20, they could stay in the ancestral land to cultivate and did not need to do anything. After the age of 20, he had to work for the family. Wang Daoyuan's previous plan was to continue staying at Jade Spring Peak and work hard to improve his talisman crafting skills. At the age of 20, he would leave the mountain and enter the Wang clan's shop to provide talismans for the clan. After becoming a second-ranked talisman master, he would be able to become an elder of the clan like his ninth uncle, Wang Shaod, and manage the clan's businesses. But now, if he continued to stay at Jade Spring Peak, it would instead delay his cultivation. This was because underage children could not leave Jade Spring Peak at will, and if they did not leave Jade Spring Peak, the spirit grains and spirit herbs planted in the spirit orb space would not be able to be sold. Wang Daoyuan could only watch helplessly as he guarded the large amount of spirit grains and spirit herbs. He could not exchange them for a single medicinal pill that could increase his cultivation. Wang Daoyuan was now a first-rank middle-grade talisman master, a technical talent. Aside from completing a certain number of talisman crafting tasks every month, there were no other restrictions when he worked in the shop. Thus, he would have enough time to sell the spirit grains and spirit herbs, and he could also purchase some of the more valuable first-rank spirit herbs. He made up his mind to find a reason to leave Jade Spring Peak as soon as possible and work in the clan's shop. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed, and the spirit grains in the spirit orb space had been harvested for a season. Perhaps because there were no insects in the space, the yield was not bad, with an average yield of more than 230 caddies per mu. After that, Wang Daoyuan only left 1 mu of land for planting spirit grains. Of the 3 mu of land that he cleared, 1 mu was planted with yellow cloud grass, and the other 2 were planted with scarlet blood ginseng. Today was the last day of the year. Although cultivators generally did not celebrate the new year like mortals, the Wang clan was a bit special, and they preserved the customs of mortals celebrating the new year. The founder of the Wang clan, Wang Chengzu, was originally the second generation of a wealthy family in the mortal world.
Moreover, he was the only son in 1,000 hectares of land, so it was needless to say that he was doted on by his elders.
Before the age of 20, Wang Qingzu had lived a simple and dull life all day long, with luxurious horses, luxurious cars, and flying eagles and dogs. Until the day he turned 20, the city where Wang Qingzu lived was suddenly trampled by a beast tide. His parents and relatives were buried in the demon's belly, and he was the only one who luckily escaped. Wang Qingzu swore to kill all the demon beasts to avenge the extermination of his clan.
Later, he happened to obtain the inheritance of a rogue cultivator and stepped onto the path of cultivation.
Although he started very late, Wang Qingzu was a cultivator with 2 spiritual roots. His water spiritual root was 8 inches and 9 fun, only a hair away from a heavenly spiritual root. His cultivation speed could be said to be extremely fast. He started cultivating when he was 20, and he successfully built his foundation before he was 40. He opened his purple palace in his 80s. Afterwards, Wang Qingzu hunted demon beasts everywhere and made a name for himself in the northern part of Zhao. The most powerful cultivation clan in Zhao, the Imperial Zhao clan, wanted to recruit him. Wang Qingzu's ancestors were once ministers of Zhao. His father named him Chengzu, hoping that he would be able to become a minister like his ancestors. In order to fulfill his father's dying wish and to find a backer, Wang Qingzu accepted the invitation and became a guest of the Zhao clan. Later, the demon beasts to the north of Mount Huiyan invaded Zhao. Wang Qingzu shone in the war against the demon beasts and made outstanding contributions. After repelling the demon beasts, the Zhao clan rewarded Wang Qingzu with a large amount of cultivation materials and also bestowed Jade Spring Peak to him. Wang Qingzu married and had children, establishing the Wang clan. Because of Wang Qingzu, the Wang clan had a large amount of customs from the time it was established. After Wang Qingzu's death, these customs gradually faded. However, the year-end accounting and ancestral worship practices were preserved. Today was the day that the clan elders checked the accounts, looked back on the past, and looked forward to the future. In the afternoon, the clan members who were free on Jade Spring Peak gathered in front of the ancestral shrine to listen to the clan elders' year-end summary and announcement of plans for the coming year. After that, it was time to worship the ancestors. Wang Daoyuan stood in front of the ancestral shrine and listened to Grand Elder Wang Jiren's speech on the high platform. It was as if he had returned to his previous life, when he was listening to the leader's speech and couldn't find any interest in it. He was thinking about how to leave Jade Spring Peak early and go out to do things. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Daoyuan felt that his legs were a little sore. The Grand Elder finally finished his speech. Next, clan head Wang Jian walked forward and said, "Next, I'll say a few simple words." After listening for a while, Wang Daoyuan was just about to continue his daydream when the clan head's words lifted his spirits. He heard the clan head say, "This year, the clan bought a new shop in Clear Glass Market. We need 5 or 6 people to work there. Those with a skill will be given priority. If any of the clan's disciples are willing to go, they can report to the Grand Elder." After hearing this news, Wang Daoyuan, who was about to daydream, suddenly became excited. Someone gave him a pillow when he was about to doze off. It was simply the best excuse that fell from the sky. Chapter 7. Wang Daoyuan wished he could immediately rush forward and register with the first elder. However, the clan leader was still talking on the platform. Later they still had to pay respects to the ancestors, so he could only suppress his urge to rush forward. By the time he finished the process of paying respects to the ancestors absent-mindedly, it was already midnight. Wang Daoyuan was so anxious that he couldn't wait until dawn. He immediately followed the first elder to the executive hall. The executive hall was where the elders handled the clan's affairs. Wang Daoyuan followed the first elder into the executive hall and found that there was already someone waiting. After that person bowed to the first elder, he said to Wang Daoyuan, "Seventh brother, why are you here?" Wang Daoyuan was ranked 7th among his peers, and the person talking to him was Wang Daocheng, who was ranked 4th. Wang Daocheng was the eldest grandson of 9th great-uncle Wang Shaod, and Wang Daoyuan learned talisman crafting from 9th great-uncle. The two of them often met, so they were very familiar with each other. Wang Daocheng had just turned 20 years old, and according to the clan's rules, he had to go out to do things. However, although Wang Daocheng had a second-ranked talisman master as his grandfather, he himself wasn't cut out for talisman crafting. Moreover, He didn't know anything about the 100 arts of cultivation. His cultivation speed could be considered average, and he was currently at the 5th layer of qi refining. His only specialty was that he was tactful and experienced in dealing with people. He was a good seedling to be a shopkeeper. However, being a shopkeeper was a lucrative job. Moreover, it was a job that only people with experience and merit could do. It was impossible for him, a young brat, to be a shopkeeper. If he wanted to be a shopkeeper, he had to find a shop to gain experience. However, the relationships between old shops were complicated, and the shopkeepers focused on nurturing people who were close to them. It would be very difficult for him to make a name for himself. A newly opened shop didn't have that many relationships. It was easy to draw on a blank piece of paper, and it would be easier to make a name for himself. Therefore, he came to the executive hall early to register. Seeing his fourth brother here, Wang Daoyuan wasn't surprised. A new shop was a shortcut to making a name for oneself. Anyone with a bit of ambition wouldn't want to miss it. Wang Daoyuan replied, "Fourth brother, you're also clear about my situation. Continuing to stay in Jade Spring Peak would only be a waste of time. It would be better for me to leave earlier to do some work and save up more spirit stones for the next generation." The great elder returned to his seat and registered the two of them. When Wang Daoyuan announced that he was a first-rank low-grade talisman master, First Elder and Wang Daoqing were both startled. The First Elder asked, "What's the success rate of refining a low-grade Tier 1 talisman?" In order not to be in the limelight, Wang Daoyuan concealed a little bit of his strength and answered, "Just reached 40%. First Elder stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Not bad, having such attainments at a young age. Your talisman crafting talent can also be considered to be above average. However, you've just turned 16, which is still far from the age set by the family. Although the family did not explicitly forbid children under the age of 20 from going out to work, there was no precedent for this. Are you going out of your own free will?" Replying to the great elder, "I did volunteer to go out in advance to do something." "That's good. Since you're willing, the clan rules don't explicitly forbid it, and the clan is short on manpower, we'll let you be. Since you're not yet 20 years old, you'll still receive 2 spirit stones per month for underage disciples. Go back and pack up. 3 days later, you'll go to Clear Glass Market with 9th brother." Wang Daoyuan let out a sigh of relief. He had finally taken the first step towards his small goal. He didn't have to worry about the spirit grains falling into his hands. After thanking First Elder, he hurried back to his abode. He actually didn't have much to pack. It was just some talisman paper, spirit ink, and a low-quality talisman brush. He threw them all into the hut within the space of the spirit pearl and finished packing. Jade Dragon Spring was located at the top of Jade Spring Peak. The water was abundant, forming a pond around half a mu in size around the spring. The spring water flowed out of the pond and rushed between the mountains. It was called Jade Dragon Stream. The stream water was rich in spirit energy, and was very suitable for irrigating the spirit fields. Therefore, more than 80% of the Wang family's spirit fields were on the 2 banks of Jade Dragon Stream. The clan members' abodes were also on the 2 banks of the stream, places that weren't suitable for developing spirit fields. The stream water flowed to the foot of the mountain and gathered with several other streams, forming a pond. The shape of the pond was like a bow placed on the ground, hence the name Sleeping Bow Pond. The pond water flowed out in the southwest direction of Jade Spring Peak. This was Qingli River. Qingli Prefecture was named after Qingli River. Wang Daoyuan and more than 10 clan members followed 9th granduncle down Jade Spring Peak and came to Sleeping Bow Pond. At the southwest end of Sleeping Bow Pond was a ferry crossing called Sleeping Bow Ferry. Because most of the Wang family's disciples were in the Qi disciple stage and couldn't fly, most of them traveled by spirit ship. The spirit ship in front of them was 10 feet long and 3 feet wide. It was made of low-grade spirit wood and was sturdy and durable. The spirit ship could completely rely on the power of the water and could also be driven by spirit stones or cultivator spirit energy. There were many rivers in Qingli Prefecture. Most of the clan's nests were on the banks of Qingli River and its tributaries. Large amounts of goods were transported by spirit ship. Jade Spring Peak was at the source of Qingli River, so the spirit ship didn't consume any spirit stones. The Wang family's ancestor, Wang Qingzu, spent his life either killing demonic beasts or on the road to kill demonic beasts. He could be said to be invincible in battle,
But he didn't have any achievements in the 100 arts of immortal cultivation.
He also didn't leave behind the 100 arts of immortal cultivation. The Wang family's 100 arts of immortal cultivation couldn't be ranked in the Qingli River area. Relying on the location upstream of Qingli River, the consumption of spirit stones for transporting large amounts of goods was small. Transporting stones, spirit ores, spirit wood and other bulky goods was the family's pillar industry. Qingli River's water flow was gentle. Relying on the power of the water alone, it would take 10 days to half a month for the spirit ship to travel from Jade Spring Peak to Qingli City. Wang Daoyuan and company had to do with the opening of the shop. They didn't have time to waste on the road. They took turns to use spirit energy to drive the spirit ship. In just a day and a half, Qingli City was already in sight. Qingli City was built by Wang Chengzu. Wang Chengzu made great contributions during the demonic beast invasion and obtained large amounts of resources. He built his clan on Jade Spring Peak. Before he was 200 years old, he broke through to the Golden Core stage and became the only Golden Core cultivator in Qingli Prefecture. However, the Wang family's population was never prosperous. Wang Chengzu also didn't have the intention to expand. This wasn't referring to the lack of descendants. Before Wang Chengzu was 200 years old, he had more than 20 sons and more than 10 daughters, but none of them were cultivators. It wasn't until he was 300 years old that he had his first cultivator son, Wang Zuxing. At this point, the Wang family's luck exploded. Wang Chengzu gave birth to several cultivator children. Those mortal children's descendants also produced many cultivators. In a few decades, the Wang family quickly grew into a cultivation clan with 50 to 60 cultivators. In addition, thanks to the mortal children Wang Chengzu gave birth to in his early years, the Wang family's mortals also grew to nearly 10,000.
With more people in the family, they naturally had to buy more properties to support the large family.
Since then, the Wang family started to expand rapidly. Wang Chengzu took the lead and built Qingli City at the place where Qingli River flowed into Qingli River. Because this was the Wang family's territory, 50% of the shop belonged to the Wang family. Qingli City brought a large amount of spirit stones to the Wang family. The Wang family used the city as a stronghold and expanded towards the lower reaches of Qingli River. In a few decades, the various factions of Qingli River region either formed an alliance with the Wang family or directly became their vassals. When the Wang family entered its heyday, Qingli Prefecture almost became the Wang family's fief. People called it Qingli Wang Clan. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. 300 years ago, the Heavenly/Mountain Range's demon beast rampage. The Zhao royal family resisted with all their strength. Although it was eventually settled, the Zhao royal family also suffered heavy losses. At this time, the three major sects took the opportunity to rebel and overthrow the Zhao royal family. Wang Chengzu, as a guest elder of the Zhao family, was also involved and died in battle. Wang Chengzu displayed his might in this battle. Together with his spirit beast, which was the Wang family's insignia, the dragonfish, he killed 5 golden core cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace. After this battle, the Cruel Sun Palace, which was originally the strongest of the 3 major sects, became the last. After the battle, the Zhao family was destroyed. A portion of the family members escaped from the country of Zhao. The 3 major sects dominated the country of Zhao and wantonly slaughtered the subordinate forces of the Zhao family. The Wang family was also among them. Luckily, the one that took over Qingli Prefecture was one of the 3 major sects, the Netherworld sect. The Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace had always been at odds. Wang Chengzu slapped the Cruel Sun Palace's face, so the Netherworld sect liked the Wang family. Furthermore, Wang Chengzu was only a guest elder of the Zhao family and had no marriage relations. After the war, the Wang family asked someone to plead for leniency, so they were not exterminated. Furthermore, the Netherworld sect also prevented the Cruel Sun Palace from taking revenge on the Wang family. However, the Wang family also suffered heavy losses. More than half of the family's cultivators were lost. They also gave up a large number of mines, forests, and most of the shops in Qingli City. Only 5 shops remained, and the Wang family became a subordinate force of the Netherworld sect. Chapter 8. Although the Wang family had become an affiliated family of the Netherworld sect, it was not a direct descendant. In the past 300 years, it had been bullied by the direct descendant of the Netherworld sect. Its sphere of influence had also been encroached by the Liang family established by the elder of the Netherworld sect, Liang Liang. There was only one shop left in the Qingli market, Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop. In the past 30 years, the three major sects had internal strife. The Netherworld sect was busy fighting for territory, and the Liang family's elder, the main force of suppressing the Wang family, was also transferred to the front line. The suppression of the Wang family was relaxed, and the Wang family's business improved a little. Now the Wang family had more than 60 cultivators and more than 100,000 mortals, and they had a new shop. The location of the Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop was excellent. It was just upstream of the three-forked estuary. On the left was the Qingli River, on the right was the Qingxi River, behind was the intersection of the two rivers, and in front of the door was a big road. In order to facilitate the transportation of goods, the Wang family built a small dock on the left side of the shop. The spirit ship sailed into the Qingli market and stopped at the small dock. Everyone got off the ship. Wang Zhida introduced, "This is the only shop of our family. There are thousands of shops in the Qingli market, and none of them is bigger or better than our Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan looked around and saw that the whole Qingli market was divided into three parts by two rivers. The part where the Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop was located was the earliest part of the Qingli market, and it was also the most prosperous part. There were more than 600 shops, and it was called the Old Market. In the downstream of the three-forked estuary, the left side was called the Left Market, and the right side was the Right Market. There were about 200 shops on each side. The Left Market and the Right Market were newly built by the Netherworld sect after the decline of the Wang family. All the shops were owned by the Netherworld sect. There were more than 300 shops in the Old Market, which were taken by the Netherworld sect when they cleaned up the affiliated forces of the Zhao family. There were only a little more than 300 shops that did not belong to the Netherworld sect. The Netherworld sect accounted for 70% of the Qingli market, and the other forces accounted for 30%. Wang Zhida continued, "The new shop of our Wang family is next to the miscellaneous goods shop. In the future, the family will transfer the talisman, elixir and spiritual grass business of the Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop to the new shop. The Yuchuan Miscellaneous Goods Shop specializes in stone, ore and spiritual wood business. Wang Zhihe will be the manager for the time being. All of you must listen to the manager's arrangements." Everyone nodded, and Wang Zhida led them to the new shop. He saw that the doors, windows and pillars of the new shop had been repainted, and a plaque covered by a red cloth hung on the door. A person walked out of the house to welcome Wang Daoyuan and his group. This person was Wang Zhihe, ranked 10th among his peers. He was at the 7th level of Qi disciple. As his name suggested, he was very polite to everyone. Wang Zhihe did things by the book. Whether it was managing the transportation of goods or entertaining the customers in the store, there were no omissions, but there were no outstanding contributions either. After working hard for 50 to 60 years, he finally became a shopkeeper. He looked like he was in his 40s, but his real age was over 80. Everybody greeted Wang Zhihe as 10th uncle, 10th granduncle. The group of people entered the backyard of the shop. Compared to the slightly narrow shop, the backyard was very spacious, with an area of about 10 acres. Wang Zhida and Wang Zhihe chatted for a while and then left. Then, Wang Zhihe assigned tasks and residences to everyone. As a talisman master, Wang Daoyuan's treatment was relatively good. He lived in an immortal's cave with abundant spiritual energy. The immortal's cave was backed by a clear stream, which was a good place to fish. At the entrance of the immortal's cave was a field of spirit fields. Compared to the spirit fields in the Grand Mist space, the spiritual energy here was slightly richer. In order to deceive others, he planted yellow cloudgrass and red blood ginseng in the spirit fields. This way, when he took out symbol paper or red blood wine, it wouldn't be too obvious. Wang Daoyuan's task was to provide spirit symbols. Every month, the family would provide 300 symbol papers and enough spirit ink. If he handed over 120 low-grade first-level spirit symbols, then he would complete the task. This task was relatively easy. An ordinary low-grade first-level spirit symbol master could craft a dozen or so talismans a day without any pressure. Moreover, he was a medium-grade spirit symbol master, so it wasn't difficult for him to craft 30 talismans a day. If he completed the monthly task, he would receive a monthly salary of 5 spirit stones. If he exceeded 120 talismans, the family would buy them back at the price of 1 spirit stone for 6 talismans. If he couldn't complete the task, the loss would be deducted from his salary. This price was quite good. An early qi condensation cultivator would use any spirit stones they had to increase their cultivation. There weren't many that were willing to buy spirit symbols. The price of low-grade first-level spirit symbols wasn't too high. The store would sell them for 1 spirit stone for 5. The next day, the new store opened. Several families with good relationships sent people to congratulate them. These people were received by Wang Zhihe. Wang Daoyuan only needed to be in the background. Almost all of the guests had arrived. Wang Zhihe personally tore off the red cloth covering the sign. He saw the words Jade Spring Pill Symbol Pavilion written on the sign. The words were strong but didn't reveal any sharpness. It was clear that this was Ninth Uncle's handwriting. A talisman master's calligraphy was generally good. At least, that was what Wang Daoyuan thought. The shops of the immortal cultivation world relied on the accumulated reputation over the years. There were no grand opening promotions or opening ceremonies. After the sign was unveiled, the store would officially open for business. The main family would host a banquet to entertain the guests that came to congratulate them. These things were all arranged by the shopkeeper and the greeter. Wang Daoyuan, as a technical talent, didn't need to participate. Just as he was about to return to his cave, a young master came in. He was wearing a brocade robe and a jade crown. He had a big yellow dog in his hand and a few servants followed behind him. This young master's appearance was quite good. However, he looked down on people and had a condescending look. A group of people walked along the street. The pedestrians on the street all made way. The young master in the brocade robe walked in with his dog. He was the first customer of the Pill Symbol Pavilion. He shouted loudly, "Give this young master's dog some spirit pills." He was clearly looking for trouble. If he was really here to do business and buy spirit pills for spirit beasts, he would have directly pointed out what kind of pills he wanted to buy. He wouldn't have said that his dog should get some spirit pills. The first customer came to buy spirit pills for his dog. It was a slap to the Pill Symbol Pavilion's face and also a slap to the later customers' faces. Although he was an evil customer, he was still a customer. They couldn't just kick him out. If they received him normally, it would mean that the Wang clan admitted defeat. This young master in the brocade robe was only 18 or 19 years old. Other than Wang Daoyuan and Wang Daoqing, the rest of the Wang clan members in the Pill Symbol Pavilion were from the older generation. If they stepped in, they would be seen as bullying the young. Wang Daoqing was the greeter, so it was appropriate for him to step in. However, he had never experienced this before and couldn't grasp the situation well. If his counterattack was too weak, it would embarrass the Wang clan. If his reaction was too intense, it would show that the Wang clan was not tolerant. Wang Daoqing's goal was to become a shopkeeper. If something went wrong now, it would be difficult for him to succeed in the future. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. As Wang Daoqing's grandfather, Wang Zhihe couldn't just stand by and watch. He transmitted his voice to Wang Daoyuan. "Daoyuan, that young man is the son of the Liang clan's patriarch, Liang Zilong. He's a complete prodigal son. This time, he came to find trouble with us. Your fourth brother is the greeter, so he should be the one to deal with this. However, this matter isn't easy to handle. His future path is to become a shopkeeper. What he needs is popularity and reputation. If he messes up, his future will be over. You're not an adult yet. No matter if it's a loss or an advantage, we can treat it as a child's mischief. After the matter is over, we can cover it up by saying that you're young and frivolous. If we elders step in, we'll be bullying the young. You've been smart since you were young. If you help your fourth brother resolve this matter, I'll allow you to exchange for 2 low-grade level 2 spirit talismans." Chapter 9. Wang Daoyuan originally didn't plan on getting involved in this matter. It wasn't that he didn't care about the clan's interests, but that wasn't his duty. If he casually stepped in, it would be a slap to his fourth brother's face. Since ninth great uncle wanted him to step in, there was no problem. With Wang Daoyuan's talent, if he didn't have a clan, he would probably still be an ordinary person and wouldn't know that he had a space in the spirit pearl. In his previous life, he didn't have a family, only a master. To have parents and such a big family in this life, Wang Daoyuan's feelings for the clan were deeper than the average person's. In order to protect the clan's interests, Why bother about personal gains and losses?
After thinking for a while, he transmitted his voice to ninth great uncle. This matter isn't easy to deal with.
I want 3 low-grade tier, 2 offensive talismans, 1 low-grade tier, 2 defensive talisman, and 1 mid-grade tier, 2 escape talisman. You can use clan contributions or spirit stones to exchange for them. Wang Zhida pondered for a moment before agreeing. As a low-grade tier 2 talisman master, he could make low-grade tier 2 talismans himself. A mid-grade tier 2 talisman needed to be exchanged in the clan's treasury. He was an elder, so wasn't it a piece of cake for him to approve a talisman? Compared to his grandson's future, these things were nothing. These talismans weren't given for free. He wouldn't lose anything and wouldn't do any harm to the clan. Wang Daoyuan also had his own considerations. He wouldn't lose anything by stepping in. At most, he would be hated by the prodigal son of the Liang clan. However, as long as he was in the Wang clan, the Liang clan would hate him. He didn't mind drawing some hatred. To be able to exchange for a few tier 2 talismans without paying anything, this was a good thing for a chi refinement cultivator to use as a trump card. Studying tier 2 talismans would also greatly improve one's talisman crafting skills. Tier 2 talismans weren't something that could be found on the streets. Tier 2 talisman paper alone wasn't easy to obtain. Moreover, Wang Zhida's success rate in crafting low-grade tier 2 talismans wasn't too high. It was only 30%, barely reaching the minimum standard of a tier 2 talisman master. Only a small portion of the tier 2 talismans he crafted were sold. Most of them were placed in the clan's treasury for the clan's disciples to exchange for. Moreover, it wasn't something that ordinary people could exchange for. One had to go out to do extremely dangerous important things, or make a great contribution to the clan. Now that there was this opportunity, how could Wang Daoyuan give it up? He walked in front of the prodigal, cupped his hands, bowed and said, "What would you like to order? Since you are our first customer, I'll give you a 20% discount." The prodigal shouted, "Are your ears stuffed with donkey hair? Didn't you hear me say that I'm going to give the dog some spirit pills?" Wang Daoyuan continued to ask. "I'm slow-witted and didn't understand young master's words. Are you giving the elixir to a human or a dog?" The prodigal said mockingly, "Is this the standard of your alchemy seal pavilion's ushers? It can't even understand the customer's request, so of course I'm going to give the dog some pills." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone burst into laughter. Even the prodigal's followers couldn't hold back their laughter. The prodigal wasn't a fool. He understood that he was being scolded, and he was the one who scolded him. He was about to explode, but when he remembered that he was here to cause trouble for the Wang clan and not to be beaten up, he suppressed his anger. Wang Daoyuan saw that he wasn't going to give up, so he continued to say, "Young master, please forgive me. Since I'm going to give the dog some spirit pills, and this dog customer entered the alchemy seal pavilion first, he's the first customer. Naturally, I'll do business with this dog customer first. Young master, please wait a moment." The prodigal said angrily, "Are you making fun of me? What kind of business can a dog do? My request is the dog's request. Quickly give me the spirit pills." Wang Daoyuan saw that he couldn't suppress his anger, so he smiled and said, "I'm slow-witted. How is young master's request the dog's request? Could it be that young master has some relationship with this dog?" Everyone burst into laughter again. The prodigal completely lost control. He took out a magic longsword and was about to attack Wang Daoyuan. How could Wang Zhida just sit there and watch? He released the aura of a peak-stage chi refining cultivator. The prodigal son was only at the 2nd level of chi refinement. Even Wang Daoyuan could slap him to the ground. How could he withstand Wang Zhida's aura? The prodigal's attack was interrupted. He couldn't stand steadily and almost fell. Luckily, a follower supported him. Wang Zhida scolded, "If you're here to buy something, this small shop will naturally serve you well. But if you use force here, the Netherworld Sex Law Enforcement Team will not just be decorations." Although the Liang family's patriarch was an elder of the Netherworld sect, he could only barely squeeze into the upper echelons of the Netherworld sect. There were many people in the Netherworld sect who didn't respect him. Clear Glass City was an important source of funds for the Netherworld sect. If this prodigal dared to publicly break the city's rule of not using force, even the Liang family's patriarch would find it hard to protect him. Moreover, he was just a prodigal. The Liang family wouldn't pay any price for him. The prodigal reacted. If he used force just now, he might not be able to keep his life. He was so scared that his face turned pale, and he broke out in cold sweat. Wang Daoyuan continued to ask, "This small shop is a small business. Only spirit nurturing pills are suitable for dog customers. How many do you need?"
The prodigal was so scared that he couldn't speak. The follower beside him replied, 20 will do.
Wang Daoyuan took 20 spirit nurturing pills and said, 2 spirit nurturing pills for 1 spirit stone, a total of 10 spirit stones. With a 20% discount, it'll still cost 8 spirit stones.
The follower paid the spirit stones, supported the prodigal, and led the dog away in a hurry.
Wang Daoyuan added, "Come again next time." The group of people left at an even faster pace. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands towards Wang Zhida and Wang Zhiha. "Ninth uncle, 10th uncle, I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he turned and walked towards the cave residence in the backyard. Wang Zhiha sighed. It's a pity that Daoyuan's aptitude isn't good. Otherwise, he'd definitely be the best candidate for the clan leader. Wang Zhida sighed and said, "It's indeed a pity. This child's talent in talisman crafting is much stronger than mine, and he has deep feelings for the clan. With today's quick-wittedness, plus his experience in human relations far surpassing Dao Cheng, he'll be able to become a shopkeeper after a few years of experience. If he can reach foundation establishment, he'll indeed be the best candidate for the clan leader." Sigh, 8 or 9 out of 10 things don't go your way in life. How can everything go your way? At this time, Wang Daoyuan had already returned to the cave residence to complete the monthly talisman crafting mission. The clan mission required a 40% success rate, and his success rate in crafting a middle-grade first-tier spirit talisman was 60%. Among the middle-grade first-tier talisman crafters, he was at the top, and this was the result of using an inferior talisman brush. Now, with the high-grade first-tier talisman brush provided by the shop, a conservative estimate of his success rate in crafting a low-grade first-tier spirit talisman could reach 70%. After making some preparations, Wang Daoyuan began to draw talismans in seclusion. A high-grade first-tier talisman brush was indeed incomparable to an inferior talisman brush. When using an inferior talisman brush to draw talismans, a large portion of spirit energy would be consumed by the talisman brush. There would even be situations where the spirit energy supply would be interrupted, directly causing the spirit talisman to be scrapped. Moreover, injecting spirit energy into the spirit talisman also required the control of the divine sense. If there was a problem with the talisman brush, it would also lead to excessive consumption of the divine sense. Due to the consumption of spirit energy and divine sense, Wang Daoyuan could draw talismans continuously for at most 2 hours before resting. He could draw talismans for a maximum of 6 hours a day. When using a high-grade first-tier talisman brush, there was no feeling of hindrance when injecting spirit energy into the talisman brush. There was almost no loss of spirit energy in the process of passing through the talisman brush, and there was also no situation of interruption. He was still in high spirits after drawing talismans for 10 hours a day. 10 days later, Wang Daoyuan had used up all 300 talisman papers. He had produced 260 talismans, and his success rate was over 80%. If other talisman crafters were to see Wang Daoyuan's talisman crafting speed and success rate, they would probably be scared to death. Even a middle-grade first-tier talisman master could only craft 20 low-grade first-tier spirit talismans a day. Any more than that and the success rate would be affected due to excessive consumption of the divine sense. However, Wang Daoyuan could craft 30 talismans a day and still had an 80% success rate. Ordinary talisman masters simply did not dare to imagine. This was also due to Wang Daoyuan's powerful divine sense. Perhaps it was because he had reincarnated and did not go through the process of the legendary underworld, or perhaps it was because of the spirit bead, but Wang Daoyuan's divine sense was very powerful, far surpassing cultivators of the same level. His ability to control spirit energy was also stronger. He was now at the 4th level of Qi refinement, and his divine sense was no weaker than that of ordinary 7th level Qi refinement cultivators. Chapter 10. If he gave all these talismans to the shopkeeper, he could get 35 spirit stones. However, Wang Daoyuan's life plan was to make a fortune in silence. He couldn't show off or attract attention, so as to avoid exposing the secret of the space in the spiritual pearl. In the end, He only gave 180 talismans to the shopkeeper and got 15 spirit stones. In addition to the 20 spirit stones he had accumulated over the years, he could be considered to have some savings. With the month's mission completed, he could do whatever he wanted with the rest of the time. With nothing to do, Wang Daoyuan took all his wealth, a huge sum of 35 spirit stones, and strolled around the streets of the market. Of course, he didn't wander around aimlessly. Whenever he saw a shop selling magic tools, he would always go in to look at the tools and ask for the price. The Wang family lacked magic tools. Wang Qingzu didn't leave behind the inheritance of the 100 arts of immortal cultivation, and the family went through a great disaster. After that, they sold everything they had in exchange for the inheritance of alchemy and talisman creation. As for the path of refining, it was a cross-border craft that included many techniques such as formations, forging, fire control, and so on. It was difficult to learn and required a lot of resources. It was also difficult to find a reliable refining inheritance. The only things that could be bought were some introductory knowledge and the forging methods of a few rank 1 magic tools. Even if he learned it, it was useless. Even if he could cultivate a rank 2 refiner, if he couldn't break through the foundation establishment stage or become a rank 3 refiner, he wouldn't be able to recoup the cost. With so many refining materials, it was better to directly exchange them for spirit herbs and cultivate a few more alchemists and talisman masters. As for formation masters, they couldn't be cultivated by a foundation establishment family. Compared to alchemy, artifacts and talismans, cultivators had much less need for formations. Only some families and sects would look for formation masters to set up mountain-protecting formations. However, any force that wanted to find someone to set up a formation would look for a somewhat famous formation master. There was no room for low-level formation masters at all. Only some cultivators who had nothing to do would learn it as a hobby. They only hoped that they wouldn't be completely clueless when it came to formations. It didn't matter whether they could set up formations or not. The Wang family didn't have a refining inheritance, nor did they try. In addition, the family was suppressed previously and didn't have enough spirit stones. Therefore, the Wang family had a shortage of magical artifacts. Most of the underage disciples did not have magical artifacts, and Wang Daoyuan was one of them. After strolling around the streets for an entire day, Wang Daoyuan had a basic understanding of the prices of ordinary first-tier magic tools. The price of a first-tier magic tool was between 10 to 20 spirit stones. The price of a first-tier magic tool was between 20 to 50 spirit stones, and the price of a first-tier magic tool was between 50 to 100 spirit stones. With Wang Daoyuan's wealth, he could buy a mid-grade first-tier magic tool. After comparing the goods, Wang Daoyuan took a fancy to Divine Weapon Pavilion's Profound Yang Sword. This Profound Yang Sword was priced at 30 spirit stones. It was 3 feet and 3 inches long and 3 inches wide. Its entire body was dark red, giving people a heavy feeling. This sword was refined in a very normal way. There was nothing lacking about it, and there was nothing amazing about it. What really attracted Wang Daoyuan was the materials of the Profound Yang Sword. The main material of the Profound Yang Sword was profound iron, which was a common raw material for Tier 1 magic tools. The supplementary material was Profound Yang Stone. Profound Yang Stone was a Tier 1 non-elemental refining material. Its characteristics were hardness and corrosion resistance. Therefore, the Profound Yang Sword was far stronger than ordinary mid-grade first-tier magic tools. Even a high-grade first-tier magic tool would find it difficult to destroy it. Although Wang Daoyuan did not know how to refine magic tools, he had some understanding of refining materials. The price of the Profound Yang Sword's raw materials was more than 15 spirit stones. In addition to the spirit charcoal and manpower used in the refining process, 30 spirit stones could be said to be a good price. Wang Daoyuan walked through the various refining shops in the old market, but he did not find a magic tool more suitable for him than the Profound Yang Sword. Walking through the door of Divine Weapon Pavilion, a young man came forward to greet him. He greeted him enthusiastically. "Dao Yu, I'm right? In this Qingli market, you definitely can't find a more affordable mid-grade first-tier magic tool than the Profound Yang Sword." Wang Daoyuan was too lazy to bargain. When he was shopping around, he had already cut it. This young man was not moved by force or persuasion. He was determined not to lower the price. He took out 30 spirit stones and gave them to the young man in front of him. He picked up the Profound Yang Sword and walked out. The young man shouted, "I hope Dao you can treat this sword well. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan stopped and turned around to ask, "Could it be that this sword has some relationship with Dao Yu?" To be honest, the profound Yang sword was made by me. It is also the first magic tool that I have refined that has the qualifications to be sold here. The young man replied. Wang Daoyuan immediately became interested. So Dao Yu is actually a refiner. Sorry for the disrespect. Dao Yu, please rest assured. This sword is also my first magic tool. I will definitely treat it well. I am Wang Daoyuan of the Jade Spring Mountains Wang family. May I know Dao Yu's name? I am Divine Weapon Pavilion's Zhao Liang. I will not disturb Brother Zhao in the future. Goodbye.
Brother Wang is welcome to come often.
I won't send you off. After Wang Daoyuan left the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he found a small artifact forging workshop and bought a set of black clothes and a bamboo hat with a long black veil. The veil had the effect of isolating the detection of divine sense, so it was perfect for covering his face. He found a secluded place and changed out of the white robe with the family symbol and changed into the new clothes he bought. Most of the rogue cultivators in the market were dressed like this, so it did not look out of place. Wang Daoyuan found a few shops that sold spirit grains and sold them in batches. Ever since he started planting spirit grains in the space of the spirit pearl, he had already harvested 2 seasons and accumulated more than 1,000 kilograms of spirit grains. It was impossible to finish so many spirit grains. It was useless to keep them in his hands. It was more cost-effective to exchange them for spirit stones. He only sold a few dozen to 100 kilograms of spirit grains in each shop. Such a small amount of spirit grains was not too eye-catching. Of course, the shop's purchase price was lower than the market price. 1,000 kilograms of spirit grains was sold for 105 spirit stones. Holding this huge sum of money, Wang Daoyuan was a little excited. His previous wealth was 35 spirit stones, and now it had doubled. It was most cost-effective to exchange money for cultivation resources. Although spirit stones could also increase the speed of cultivation, the effect was far inferior to some spirit pills that could increase cultivation. Directly using spirit stones to increase cultivation was not a good choice. Of course, spirit stones of mid-grade and above were an exception. Spirit stones were the common currency in the cultivation world. They contained spirit chi and could be used for cultivation. The spirit stones that were not specified in the transaction were usually low-grade spirit stones. If he wanted to buy pills, he naturally had to take care of his own business. Wang Daoyuan swaggered into Divine Weapon Pavilion. Wang Daoqing immediately greeted him warmly. Dao Yu, are you buying pills, spirit talismans, or selling things? Our shop has first and second grade pills, spirit talismans, and everything you need. We are buying a large amount of pill and talisman materials. Large quantities will be given preferential treatment. Wang Daoyuan said in an old voice. This old man is selling some spirit talismans. I also want to buy some soul-gathering pills, spirit ink, and first-grade upper-grade talisman paper. Wang Daoqing said, so Senior is also a spirit talisman master. Sorry for the disrespect. Soul-gathering pills are 2 spirit stones for 1, first-grade upper-grade talisman paper is 1 spirit stone for 2 sheets, and spirit ink is 10 spirit stones per kilogram. How much does Senior need? Wang Daoyuan sold all of his first-grade talismans and bought 40 first-grade upper-grade talisman paper, 1 kilogram of spirit ink, and 30 soul-gathering pills. Seeing that it was a big business, Wang Daoqing's face was full of joy. He said respectfully, Senior, your talismans are 14 spirit stones. The things you want to buy are 100 spirit stones. Since this is the first time we are doing such a big business, I will give you a 10% discount. It will be 90 spirit stones. You still have to pay 76 spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan took out the spirit stones and handed them to Wang Daoqing. He then turned around and walked out. Wang Daoqing smiled so widely that his teeth could be seen. He handed Wang Daoyuan an iron token and said, Senior, you are welcome to come again. You can also enjoy a 10% discount in the future if you use this token to shop in our shop. Wang Daoyuan laughed in his heart. As expected of 9th great-uncle's grandson. Although he is still a little immature, his mouth is quite sharp. This business was the same no matter which shop he went to. It was better to take care of his own business. When the meat was in the pot, it would be his own family that would lose out. However, if Wang Daoqing knew that he was calling his 7th brother a senior, he would definitely beat him up. Chapter 11. Wang Daoyuan returned to the Pill Talisman Pavilion and carefully observed the profound Yang sword. He dripped his blood on it and practiced a set of sword techniques from the secular world. Qi condensation stage cultivators' spiritual sense and spiritual energy were still very weak and could not support sword control to kill enemies. Therefore, they were still like the secular world's Jianghu people, holding weapons and hacking at each other. Wang Daoyuan murmured, "I guessed right, there is something fishy about the profound Yang sword. This is a failed high-grade Tier 1 magic tool. After the failure, it was refined again. No wonder the refining technique blindly seeks stability. It is stable to the point of using high-grade magic tool materials to refine a middle-grade magic tool. The price is also so good. If it did not recognize the owner, it really would not be discovered. However, I am not at a disadvantage. Even if it is a failed product, it is only the runes on the sword body that are prone to problems. It is still stronger than the average middle-grade magic tool. Moreover, I have also met a refiner who is not even 20 years old and can refine a high-grade Tier 1 magic tool. Either he is a refiner genius or he has a great background, enough refining materials to squander, and the guidance of a master. Regardless of the situation, it is a good thing to meet a refiner with great potential. If I can use this to establish a relationship with the Divine Weapon Pavilion." However, this was also wishful thinking. The Divine Weapon Pavilion is a big power. They have shops in Beiyuan Xueqi and are famous for their refining. Their strength is not something that the three major sects of Zhao can compare to. The Wang family and the Divine Weapon Pavilion also have business dealings. The Wang family sells some low-grade refining materials to the Divine Weapon Pavilion and also buys some magic tools from the Divine Weapon Pavilion. However, it is limited to business. The Divine Weapon Pavilion does not interfere with other powers and does not care about the Wang family's strength. After that, Wang Daoyuan lived a leisurely life. Every night, he meditated, raised his cultivation and practiced the soul-forging art. During the day, he practiced his sword for 2 hours. The body of a Qi condensation stage cultivator is not strong enough. Other than when he is about to break through, cultivating for too long is easy to hurt his meridians. Therefore, Wang Daoyuan spent most of the day idle. The various spirit herbs in the space of the spirit pearl, other than the spirit grains that are harvested once every 9 days, there is nothing to take care of. It would take at least 10 years to harvest the scarlet blood ginseng. Half a year's worth of yellow cloud grass could be used to craft a low-grade Tier 1 talisman. 3 years' worth of yellow cloud grass could be used to craft a mid-grade Tier 1 talisman, and 10 years' worth of yellow cloud grass could be used to craft a high-grade Tier 1 talisman. His level of talisman crafting was already close to the first level of high-grade talisman. Therefore, he didn't have much interest in low-grade and medium-grade talisman paper. The yellow cloud grass in the space was reserved for crafting high-grade talisman paper. Even though the flow of time in the space of the spirit pearl was 10 times faster, the red blood ginseng and the yellow cloud grass were still not ready to be harvested yet. The other spiritual herbs needed to be older in order to be useful. On the 10th day after completing the talisman crafting task, Wang Daoyuan was bored and could only find something to do. The backyard of the cave abode was a clear stream, which was perfect for fishing. He took out the fishing rod that had been with him for many years from his storage bag and started fishing in the clear stream behind the cave. Wang Daoyuan had always been a foodie in his previous life. Ever since he entered the Jade Spring Peak, he had made a fishing rod and fished in the Jade Dragon Stream to satisfy his cravings. Later on, in order to break through to the middle stage of Qi Disciple, he used a large amount of time to meditate and cultivate. It had been a long time since he fished. The cultivators on the water all looked at him as if they were looking at a rare beast. Cultivators were busy all day long, either risking their lives to obtain resources or cultivating in seclusion. Other than high-level cultivators who had encountered bottlenecks and needed to temper their state of mind, who would be so free as to fish? Moreover, they were fishing in a busy section of the river. Just how free were they? Wang Daoyuan was indeed so free that he had nothing to do. In the 30 years of his previous life and the 16 years of his current life, he had never been so free. In addition, he had been eating spirit grains all this time, so he just happened to be able to catch a few fish to try out. The fish at the mouth of the Three Forks estuary were quite silly. Even when he used spirit grains as bait, there would be a group of fish fighting to eat it. When he scattered a handful of spirit grains into the water, it actually attracted a large group of fish. He was purely a man with a full stomach and didn't know the hunger of a hungry man. Most cultivators wouldn't be able to eat spirit grains for a few days.
There were only a few cultivators who ate spirit grains all day long like he did, let alone the fish in the river.
In addition, it was also due to the space of the spiritual pearl. The spiritual objects produced by the space of the spiritual pearl were very attractive to spirit beasts. In addition, the fish in the river were really inexperienced. In just more than 2 hours, he had caught more than 10 fish. Fortunately, the fish basket was big enough, otherwise, it wouldn't be able to hold them. These were all ordinary fish.
After living in a place with rich spiritual energy for a long time, they had a bit of spirituality.
They could be called pseudo-spirit fish, which was equivalent to the cultivation level of the meridian opening stage. Although they were not spiritual fish, when cultivators ate this kind of pseudo-spirit fish, unlike eating ordinary people's food, it would not lead to the accumulation of impurities in the body, which was not good for cultivation. Secondly, the pseudo-spirit fish tasted very good. For a foodie like Wang Daoyuan, this was the most important thing.
He was about to put away the fishing rod and go back to stew the fish soup when suddenly the buoy in the water shook violently.
He hurriedly tried to lift the fishing rod, but to his surprise he failed. This fishing gear was made by himself when he was on the mountain.
In order to fish for a sumptuous meal, he was greedy.
It was good for catching small fish, but not for catching big fish. The fish struggled wildly in the water, causing a large splash. Its tail came out from time to time and slapped the water fiercely. With such a big movement, the fish was definitely not small.
He did not dare to pull back the fishing rod forcibly for fear of breaking it, so he could only fish slowly.
The fish was so energetic that Wang Daoyuan felt that his hands and feet were sore, but the fish still swam vigorously. After more than an hour, dozens of cultivators on the boat and on the shore were watching. A few of them were jeering and ridiculing. It turned out that the onlookers were not the specialties of Huaxia in his previous life. A group of cultivators were also like this. Anyway, if it were not for the onlookers, Wang Daoyuan would have given up. After making such a big scene, it would be embarrassing if he could not catch the fish. After another hour, more than 100 cultivators had gathered. The fish was finally tired and was pulled out of the water by Wang Daoyuan. As soon as the fish came out of the water, the onlookers were amazed. They saw that the fish was quite beautiful. Its head was similar to a carp, but its body was more slender than a carp. Its body was more than 2 feet long and its whole body was blood red. Its scales were large, but they were arranged closely layer upon layer, like armor. Its 2 long whiskers were 3 inches long, its fins were like streamers, and its tail fin was more than half a foot long. Wang Daoyuan thought for a long time, but he did not have any impression of this kind of fish. On the Jade Spring Peak, he was familiar with the family's book collection. He knew all the common spiritual medicines and spiritual beasts, but he had never seen this kind of fish in the book.
At this time, an old cultivator with white hair and beard thought for a while and shouted in surprise, "Could this be the clear river carp that has been extinct for more than 200 years?
Hearing this, a few cultivators were surprised, but most of the cultivators were at a loss. The old cultivator's words attracted a lot of cultivators nearby. Of course, most of them were old cultivators, and Wang Zhida was among them. Many young cultivators were asking the people around them what the clear river carp was. Wang Daoyuan was also confused. Wang Zhida understood the situation through the conversations of the other cultivators. He turned around and returned to the backyard of the Jade Spring General Store. After a while, he came back with a fishing rod and handed it to Wang Daoyuan, saying, "Your fishing rod is useless, use this." Wang Daoyuan put the clear river carp into the fish basket, took the fishing rod handed over by ninth uncle, hung the spirit grains, and continued to fish. Listening to the conversations of some older cultivators, he also had some understanding of the clear river carp. The clear river carp was a specialty of the Clear Glass River. It was only produced in the upper reaches of the Clear Glass River and a few tributaries. The Clear Glass River had 2 major specialties: the clear river carp in the upper reaches and the colored glass sand in the middle and lower reaches. The Clear Glass River was named because of these 2 specialties. When the Zhao country was still in charge of the imperial family, they strictly controlled the mining of colored glass sand and the fishing of the clear river carp. The production of these 2 specialties was very stable. After the 3 great sects took over, there was no restraint, causing the production of colored glass sand to be very low. The clear river carp had been extinct more than 200 years ago. Chapter 12. The fish in the river were a group of starving ghosts. After changing the fishing rod, it didn't take long before another fish took the bait. The fishing rod in Wang Daoyuan's hand was made of spiritual wood, the fishing line was made of spiritual silk, and the hook was also made of a kind of spiritual iron. Although it was not refined by a refiner, the strength of the material itself was already very high, so there was no need to worry about it being broken. After the fish took the bait, Wang Daoyuan directly lifted the rod. He only felt that his hand suddenly sank, and another clear river carp was thrown up. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. Such a precious spirit fish couldn't even control itself after eating a few spirit grains. Seeing this scene, the onlookers also couldn't hold back. Many people made simple fishing rods and hooks on the spot. After catching 2 fish, Wang Daoyuan waited for another half an hour and caught a few more pseudo-spiritual fish. No more clear river carps took the bait, so he took back the rod and returned to the cave house, leaving countless cultivators fishing on the shore. Back in the cave house, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual consciousness entered the space of the spiritual bead. In the spiritual grains of the space of the spiritual bead, he dug a 2-foot square pit and used a rain talisman. Soon the pit was filled with rainwater. He put the clear river carps and pseudo-spiritual fish into the pit and pushed his spiritual consciousness out of the space of the spiritual bead. After a while, 9th uncle Wang Zhida came to his cave house. Wang Daoyuan's cave house was not big and could be scanned at a glance. Wang Zhida didn't see where the clear river carps were, so he asked, "Where are the clear river carps?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I put them in." Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Wang Zhida, "Don't say it. It's best if no one knows where they are except you. Just make sure the fish doesn't die." "Ninth uncle, don't worry. The clear river carps are absolutely safe. They won't die." Wang Daoyuan patted his chest and promised. Wang Zhida sighed and said, "Our Wang family is still too weak. This time we may not be able to keep the clear river carps. You should be mentally prepared. When it's time to hand them over, don't be reluctant. Otherwise the whole family will be implicated." Wang Daoyuan had some doubts. "Since it concerns the family's interests, I naturally wouldn't be reluctant. But I don't understand. Is this Qing River carp so important? Our clan actually can't handle it." Wang Zhida forced a smile and said, "If it was 300 years ago, it wouldn't be a big deal if you stewed these 2 carps. But now, the Qing River carps had not appeared for more than 200 years. These 2 could be the only Qing River carps left. The value of the Qing River carp itself was not very high. Eating it could strengthen one's physique, consolidate one's foundation, and heal internal injuries. Moreover, it was only useful for cultivators below the foundation establishment stage. What was valuable was not its actual value, but the fact that it was useless. In terms of delicacies, not to mention Qingli County, even in the entire Zhao country, there were only a handful of delicacies that could compare to the Qing River carp. The 3 great sects themselves were not righteous sections. After replacing the Zhao family, they were extremely extravagant. In order to show off their status, it was not uncommon to spend a lot of money to buy a piece of scrap metal. Not to mention the Qing River carp, which was a famous delicacy. It was said that 200 years ago, the last Qing River carp was auctioned off by a few Jindan cultivators. In the end, it was sold for a high price of 100,000 spirit stones. These 2 fish reappeared after 200 years. How could the price be low? These 2 fish are worth at least 100,000 spirit stones. Such a large sum of spirit stones is not something our small Wang family can handle. I've already sent a message to the clan leader. As for how to deal with it, we still have to wait for the family to make a decision. Our mission is to prevent people from stealing the Qing River carp. Wealth moves people's hearts. It's worth 100,000 spirit stones. It's enough to make the majority of people lose their minds. Hearing 9th great uncle's words, Wang Daoyuan was silent for a long time before saying, "9th great uncle, do you have a spirit beast pouch? It doesn't need to be high grade. It's fine as long as it can hold 2 fish." Wang Zhida asked doubtfully, "What do you want a spirit beast pouch for?" Wang Daoyuan smiled mysteriously. "What's false is true, what's true is false, what's false is true." Wang Zhida had a look of understanding. He untied a pouch from his waist. It looked no different from an ordinary storage pouch. He said, "This is a low-grade spirit beast pouch. Take it and use it. You must be careful. It's fine if you can't keep the Qing River carp. It's a windfall anyway. If you lose it, just pretend you didn't catch it. Your life is your own. If you lose it, you can't get it back." Wang Zhida took out another storage pouch and said, "These are the talismans I promised you last time. 3 low-grade second-tier golden saber talismans, 1 low-grade second-tier earth armor talisman, and 1 mid-grade second-tier divine strider talisman. Remember to return the spirit stones and contribution points to me. If you use them well, you can keep your life as long as you don't encounter a Foundation Establishment cultivator. There are also several high-grade first-tier spirit talismans inside. Keep them for self-defense." Finished speaking, he turned around and left. Wang Daoyuan took the spirit talismans. He saw that these second-tier spirit talismans were different from the yellow spirit talisman paper of the first-tier spirit talismans. They all used purple spirit talisman paper. The purple spirit talisman paper's ability to bear spiritual power was more than just a little bit stronger. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to bear the spiritual power of the second-tier spirit talisman. The power of the second-tier spirit talisman was said to be comparable to a Foundation Establishment cultivator's attack. With so much spiritual power poured into the spirit talisman paper, if the spirit talisman paper wasn't strong enough, it would directly collapse. The runes of the second-tier spirit talisman were also more complicated. However, there were still many similarities with the same type of first-tier spirit talisman. The first-tier spirit talisman was more like a simplified version of the second-tier spirit talisman. He carefully put these second-tier spirit talisman papers into the spirit bead's thatched hut, ensuring that he could take them out and use them at any time. It was still morning and the sky was still early. If someone wanted to steal the Qing River carp, it wouldn't be during the day. What's more, there were still a large number of cultivators fishing on both sides of the Qing River and Qingli River. It was still uncertain whether they could catch the Qing River carp, so there was no need to take the risk of stealing from the Wang family's store. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was coming to rob them now, he should make more preparations. Although he had the second-tier spirit talisman as his trump card, it was always better to be more prepared. The Qing River carp was worth more than 100,000 spirit stones. Who knew how many desperados it would attract? Wang Daoyuan took out the talisman paper and spirit ink and began to try to refine the first-tier spirit talisman. Refining the first-tier spirit talisman didn't have any requirements for spiritual sense, but it could only be triggered with spirit power. Refining the first-tier spirit talisman required the injection of spiritual sense power. The spirit talisman refined this way could be triggered with spiritual sense power. It didn't need to be held in the hand. As long as it was within the range of spiritual sense, it could be triggered and used more covertly. Generally, spirit talisman masters could try to refine the first-tier spirit talisman when their success rate of refining the first-tier spirit talisman reached 60%. Wang Daoyuan could reach this level with an inferior talisman brush, so he could try to refine the first-tier spirit talisman. Wang Daoyuan focused his mind and calmed his qi, preparing to formally refine the spirit talisman. He wanted to refine the first-tier spirit cloud talisman, which was a water attribute spirit talisman. It could release a cloud of mist that could last for half an hour. Cultivators who entered it would fall into an illusion. Those who dared to rob were at least cultivators in the late stage of qi refining. Wang Daoyuan had no chance of winning in a head-on confrontation. It was more reliable to use the illusion to delay the enemy. When the enemy fell into the illusion, he could use the attack spirit talisman to kill them. The first-tier spirit talisman was much more difficult to refine. It required the injection of spiritual sense and spiritual sense power into the brush at the same time. Not only did it have to ensure that the power was injected evenly, but it also had to ensure that the two powers didn't conflict with each other. Before starting the refining, he first took out the first-tier spirit talisman given by Ninth Uncle and carefully observed it to see how Ninth Uncle drew the talisman and dealt with the conflict between spiritual sense and spiritual sense. After half an hour, he began to refine. Even so, he failed twice in a row before he found a little feeling. It wasn't until the 7th refining that he successfully refined the first spirit cloud talisman. He then refined 2 more spirit cloud talismans in a spurt of energy, consuming a total of 10 talisman papers. He wanted to continue refining, but his spiritual sense and spiritual sense didn't allow it. Without relying on external objects to restore his spiritual sense and spiritual sense, his limit was 10 spirit talismans a day. 10 talisman papers were used to refine 3 talismans. The success rate didn't reach 40%, so he couldn't be regarded as a real first-tier spirit talisman master. At this time, it was already dark. The people who robbed the Qing River carps could appear at any time. He must quickly restore his state. Otherwise, no matter how much preparation he had, it would be useless if he couldn't hold on. Wang Daoyuan took out 2 pseudo-spirit fish from the spiritual pearl space, put them in a water basin, put them in the spirit beast bag, and hung the spirit beast bag on his waist. After that, he took a spirit cleansing pill to restore spiritual sense and meditated to restore spiritual sense and spiritual sense. Chapter 13. More than 2 hours later, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense and spiritual power had been completely restored. Walking out of the cave, he found that it was already late at night. The shop's defensive array was all activated, and the defensive light cover covered the entire shop. Just as he was about to turn around and return to the cave, a black shadow rushed out from the corner. Before he had time to react, he was kicked into the cave. Wang Daoyuan screamed, but there was no sound coming out of the cave. At this time, the cave had been covered by a soundproof array. Wang Daoyuan had a bad feeling. Under this kick, he had been seriously injured. Facing an assassin who was much stronger than him, he had no chance of winning. He did not know that there was a soundproof array around the cave. His only hope of survival was to delay the assassin and wait for Uncle Jiu to rescue him. The assassin closed the door of the cave and walked in front of Wang Daoyuan. He lifted Wang Daoyuan with one hand and took out a black dagger to his neck. He threatened, "Boy, hand over the Qing River cop and I will spare your life. Otherwise, I will let you know what it means to beg for death." This assassin was obviously a professional. With one kick, Wang Daoyuan's body fell apart. It was difficult for him to move, but his speech was not affected. The dagger in his hand did not reflect any light. If it were not for the light in the cave, it would not be visible. In the face of this assassin whose cultivation was far above him, even if he was in perfect condition, Wang Daoyuan was definitely not his opponent. Not to mention, he was seriously injured from the sneak attack and had no power to fight back. He thought about countermeasures while delaying. "If I hand over the Qing River carp, can you promise to spare my life?" The assassin sneered. "Do you think you have the qualifications to bargain now?" After that, the assassin put the dagger to Wang Daoyuan's neck. The dagger had already pierced the skin. Wang Daoyuan's brain accelerated, thinking about countermeasures. He thought of the rain talisman that he had used in the space of the spirit bead. Since the rain talisman could be used in the space of the spirit bead, then the illusion cloud talisman should also be able to be used. He didn't have time to think carefully about a countermeasure, so he had to take a risk. His spiritual sense detonated the 2 illusion cloud charms in the space of the spirit bead. Before the clouds could form, they were transferred out by the power of his spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan split his attention to distract the assassin and said in fear, "Don't kill me, I'll tell you where the Qing River carps are." Just as the assassin came closer to listen to Wang Daoyuan talk about the whereabouts of the Qing River carps, a large cloud of fog suddenly appeared out of thin air and instantly shrouded the assassin. Wang Daoyuan was prepared for this, and he was the one who detonated the talisman, so he could use his divine sense to direct the power of the talisman elsewhere. Therefore he was not hit. This assassin's cultivation level was higher than Wang Daoyuan's. Wang Daoyuan could not accurately determine his cultivation level, but the pressure he felt was no less than 9th great uncle's. He guessed that this assassin's cultivation level was at least at the 9th level of qi refinement. It was unknown how long the illusion cloud talisman could keep an assassin in the illusion. The assassin could wake up at any moment. At this time, he did not care about the injuries on his body and took out a 2nd-level lower-grade golden knife talisman from the space of the spirit pearl. He did not dare to release this kind of offensive talisman in the space of the spirit pearl and then transfer it out. If he went overboard, his head would be split open. Originally, he wanted to use a 1st-level upper-grade golden sword talisman, but he did not know the depth of this assassin. If his attack failed, he would die without a doubt. For his own little life, he could only reluctantly use a 2nd-level talisman. Detonating the talisman, a 3-inch long golden knife flew out and pointed directly at the assassin's forehead.
This assassin had lived a life of licking blood from his blade for many years, so his vigilance was extremely high. The moment Wang Daoyuan detonated the golden knife talisman, the assassin felt the threat of death and woke up from the illusion. Under normal circumstances, the success rate of Wang Daoyuan's sneak attack was extremely low. However, the assassin was only an arm's length away from Wang Daoyuan, and the assassin had just woken up from the illusion. He simply did not have time to react before the golden knife pierced through his forehead. The assassin's face was full of disbelief, but he could not use the slightest bit of strength and could only unwillingly fall down. Wang Daoyuan, who was being carried by the assassin, lost the strength to support himself and also fell to the ground. With great difficulty, Wang Daoyuan took out a rejuvenation pill and swallowed it. After about half an hour, Wang Daoyuan finally recovered his basic mobility. Putting the assassin's body into the space of the spirit pearl, he cleaned up the traces and walked out of the immortal's cave. Wang Daoyuan saw that the immortal's cave was shrouded in a soundproof array. He could not use spiritual power at all, so he could only use his spiritual sense to detonate a first-level upper-grade golden sword talisman to break the array. The soundproof array's defensive power was not very high. Under the golden sword, it did not even hold up for a breath. After breaking the array, Wang Daoyuan did not have the strength to look for people, so he could only shout, "Ninth uncle, save me!" Wang Daoyuan's immortal's cave was located in the backyard of the Pill Seal Pavilion, only a wall away from the sundry goods store. Hearing Wang Daoyuan's cry for help, Wang Zhida quickly rushed over. He supported Wang Daoyuan and asked, "Daoyuan, how are you now?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I was sneak attacked by an assassin. I can't use spiritual power now, so it's not a big problem." Wang Zhida checked Wang Daoyuan's pulse. After confirming Wang Daoyuan's physical condition, he was relieved and asked in surprise, "How is it possible? The defensive array did not have any movement. How did the assassin sneak in? Where is the assassin now? Maybe he sneaked in ahead of time and was prepared. He also arranged a soundproof array around my immortal's cave." Wang Daoyuan gasped. "The assassin was repelled by my spiritual talisman. The soundproof array was also broken in the fight. After I called for help, he ran away." Intentionally or unintentionally, Wang Zhida's eyes swept over Wang Daoyuan's spiritual beast pouch and asked, "Is the item still there?" Wang Daoyuan also subconsciously touched the spiritual beast pouch at his waist and replied, "It's still there. After the assassin injured me, he wanted to interrogate me about the item's whereabouts. I used a spiritual talisman to attack him. After I called for help, he ran away in a panic. He didn't have a chance to snatch the item." Wang Zhida nodded and was about to help Wang Daoyuan back to his immortal's cave. Wang Daoyuan's immortal's cave did not have a special defensive array, so it was not safe to stay inside. Suddenly, the store's defensive light shield shook violently. Obviously, someone was attacking the array, and their strength was very strong. The store's defensive array was not an ordinary item. Under full operation, a qi refining cultivator's attack would only cause some ripples. With such a big movement, it was very likely that a foundation establishment cultivator had made a move. Wang Daoyuan immediately used all the high-grade level 1 defensive spiritual talismans that Ninth Uncle had given him. 2 layers of golden armor and a layer of earth-yellow armor covered his body. It was the effect of using the golden armor talisman and the earth armor talisman. After using the spiritual talismans, he immediately rushed to Ninth Uncle's immortal's cave. At this time, the second attack hit the store's defensive array. After the array's light shield shook for a while, a hole was broken. A black shadow flew in through the gap on a flying sword. Wang Daoyuan secretly cursed. It really was a foundation establishment cultivator. With his and Ninth Uncle's strength, they did not have to worry too much if they encountered cultivators below the foundation establishment realm. However, the difference between a foundation establishment cultivator and a qi refining cultivator was like the abyss between heaven and earth. Foundation establishment cultivators could cultivate the sword kinesis technique and control flying swords. They could kill enemies from 100 steps away and could even fly on the sword. If a foundation establishment cultivator who was proficient in the sword kinesis technique went to kill a qi refining cultivator, it would definitely be a one-sided slaughter. The qi refining cultivator had no chance of counterattacking. A silver-white sword light was emitted from the black shadow, pointing directly at Wang Daoyuan and Wang Zhida. The defensive spells on their bodies were instantly broken, and Wang Daoyuan was sent flying 6 meters away. The black shadow went straight for Wang Daoyuan. Before Wang Daoyuan landed, the black shadow had already caught up with him. He took the spirit beast pouch on Wang Daoyuan's waist and flew away on his sword. Chapter 14. Wang Daoyuan's injuries worsened. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, barely managing to keep himself from fainting. Acting has to go all the way. There's still one last line left. He can't drop the ball now. Using all his strength, he shouted, "Uncle Joe, the thing was stolen by him." Before his voice fell, he fainted. Wang Jida's cultivation level is at the peak of Qi Disciple after all, and he also has a defensive spell to protect himself. Even though his defense was also broken by a sword and he spat out blood, his situation is much better than Wang Daoyuan's. He still has a bit of combat power. Hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, he shouted, "Thief, don't go, leave the thing behind." Then he used 2 low-grade second-tier golden saber talismans. 2 golden sabers chasing after the black shadow. The black shadow's contemptuous laughter was heard. He casually waved his hand. A sword light flew over and collided with the golden sabers. The 2 golden sabers directly turned into nothingness. The sword light continued to fly towards Wang Jida. Wang Jida took out another low-grade second-tier golden armor talisman. The sword light arrived and collided with the golden armor, both disappearing. Wang Jida fell to the ground, spitting out another mouthful of blood. A low-grade second-tier talisman is said to be as powerful as an early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator's attack. But in reality, in front of a real Foundation Establishment cultivator, it can't even withstand a single blow. 3 low-grade second-tier talismans can't completely offset a casual attack from a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Wang Jida called over the clansmen working in the store, ordering them to carry Wang Daoyuan away for treatment and turn off the store's defensive formation. The black shadow that had already flown into the sky quickly flew out of the market square. At this time, around the Wang family's 2 stores, a large amount of sword light soared into the sky. Chasing after the black shadow, it was very spectacular. Wang Jida secretly sighed in relief. That was close. Luckily they all left. Otherwise, with this group of Foundation Establishment cultivators, it wouldn't take much effort to exterminate the Wang family. The Foundation Establishment cultivators all left, but some Qi Disciple cultivators refused to leave. After a while, someone couldn't hold back anymore. An old cultivator walked into the grocery store. He cupped his hands towards the pale Wang Jida. "I don't know if Dao Yu is interested in selling Qing River carps. I'm not talented, but I have a lot of wealth. I want to buy Qing River carps. What do you think?" Before his voice died away, Wang Jida flew into a rage. "Zhao Baogua, do you think there's no one in the Wang family? I, Wang Jida, admit that I'm incompetent and am no match for a Foundation Establishment senior. However, I'm not at the point where a puny 8th-level Qi disciple like you dares to ride on my neck and shit on me. Even if I'm seriously injured, I can still destroy you." The old cultivator's face alternated between green and white. He wanted to attack, but he couldn't make up his mind. He could only coldly snort and say, "Fellow cultivator, you sure talk big. Do you not care about the rules of the underworld sect?" Wang Jida shouted angrily. "Wang of blood to Jida. Zhao Dao is Zhao. The. A group of people surrounded him, asking all sorts of questions. In order to get back at Wang Jida's humiliation, he added fuel to the fire. "Wang Jida, this old fellow, is really done for. Don't be fooled by his amiable appearance. He was famous for his bad temper when he was young. He started to pretend to be a good person when he got older. This time he was so angry that he showed his true colors. In the end, he was so angry that he even spat blood. Ha! He felt much better, as if he had beaten up Wang Jida himself. He immediately felt refreshed. A middle-aged cultivator asked, "So, Qing River carps were really taken away by that Foundation Establishment cultivator?" Zhao Baogua said proudly. "Of course, didn't everyone see it with their own eyes?" Given Wang Jida's personality, there was no way he could hide his true intentions. If he hadn't been snatched away, would he have been so angry? Also, the Wang family even removed the defensive formation. If Qing River carps were still there, would Wang Jida have the guts to remove the formation? Most people believed his words. The cultivators lurking around the Wang clan's shop gradually dispersed. Only a few who were unwilling to give up were still waiting nearby. There were only a few big cats and small cats, so they didn't dare to do anything. After Wang Daoyuan fainted, He was fed healing medicinal pills by his clansmen and carried back to his cave residence. When he woke up, the sky was already bright. Although his whole body was still in pain, he could barely move. Thinking that Qing River carps were still in his hands, although many people believed that Qing River carps were taken away by a Foundation establishment cultivator, he couldn't avoid being interrogated after all. If the Netherworld sect couldn't get Qing River carps in the end, with the Liang family fanning the flames, the Wang family would be the unlucky one in the end. Moreover, even if the Wang family could keep Qing River carps, they wouldn't dare to sell it at all. It wouldn't be of much use in their hands. Instead, it was better to hand over Qing River carps. Although the Netherworld sect wasn't a good person, it wouldn't go as far as to give good things to their subordinate forces without any expression. At least, it would lessen the pressure of the Netherworld sect on the Wang family. People under the eaves had to lower their heads. Instead of holding something that couldn't be used, it was better to hand it over to please the Netherworld sect. Thinking of this, Wang Daoyuan dug a hole under the bed in the cave residence, took out 2 Qing River carps from the space, and put them in a basin. He put the basin in the hole, covered it with a wooden board, and buried it with some soil. After all, Qing River carps were spiritual beasts that had entered the first rank. Their vitality was tenacious, and ordinary fish couldn't compare. This was nothing. Wang Daoyuan wasn't afraid of suffocating the 2 fish. After doing these things, Wang Daoyuan continued to lie on the bed, took a few healing pills, and slowly operated his cultivation method to heal his injuries. He was first attacked by a cultivator who was at least at the 9th level of Qi disciple, and then injured by the sword Qi of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Without 1 or 2 months of recuperation, he wouldn't be able to recover to his original state. On the other side, the Black Shadow who snatched the spiritual beast bag flew all the way to the east of Qingli City. As soon as he left Qingli City, he found a group of Foundation establishment cultivators chasing after him on their swords. Some of them didn't hesitate to use their blood essence to activate a secret technique to kill him. The Black Shadow cursed. A group of poor people who haven't seen the world. Isn't it just a few 100,000 spiritual stones? Do they have to risk their lives like this? He seemed to have forgotten that he also violated the Netherworld sect's ban, forcibly attacked the shop, and injured the people in the shop for these 100,000 spiritual stones. If he was caught by the Netherworld sect, he would definitely die a horrible death. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. A few 100,000 spiritual stones was enough for a Foundation establishment cultivator to earn for dozens of years. Ordinary late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, who weren't proficient in the 100 arts of immortal cultivation, could only earn 2,000 to 3,000 spiritual stones a year. Needless to say, most Qi disciple cultivators couldn't even afford a Foundation establishment pill in their lifetime. And a Foundation establishment pill was only 50,000 spiritual stones. The chasing crowd was getting closer and closer, and the Black Shadow had no choice but to use a secret technique to escape. A group of people chased, and 1 person escaped. After tossing and turning for more than 4 hours, the Black Shadow stopped. If he continued to escape like this, he wouldn't even have the strength to resist, so he might as well kill one of the pursuers first, frighten the others, and still have a chance to escape. He slowly reduced his speed, and the pursuers behind him thought that he was exhausted. A few hotheads took the lead, wanting to snatch the Qing River carp. When these hotheads got close to the Black Shadow turned around and stabbed his sword, directly aiming at a pursuer who was only in the early stage of Foundation establishment. When the pursuers saw the long sword stabbing towards them, they subconsciously scattered. This early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator was the first to bear the brunt, and he didn't have time to dodge at all. He had no choice but to use his long sword to block the attack. After a loud noise, the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator's long sword was broken, and he also suffered a serious injury. Without his magic tool, he couldn't even fly on his sword, let alone chase after him. Moreover, he was also injured. If he didn't escape quickly, he might be killed by the pursuers. He didn't take advantage of the situation, and his magic tool was also broken. In desperation, this cultivator withdrew from the pursuit while cursing. Chapter 15. The Black Shadow had been planning this attack for a long time, but it did not kill the other party. Naturally, it did not have a deterrent effect. On the contrary, because of the delay, the pursuers had already caught up. At this time, it was impossible to escape.
He could only fight and then find a chance to escape. Seeing that the black shadow was no longer running, the pursuers were not in a hurry to catch up. A group of people surrounded the black shadow. A cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment came forward and persuaded, "Dao Yu is already at the end of the road. We have chased you for thousands of miles only for money. We have no interest in Dao Yu's head. As long as you hand over the Qing River carp, we will let you go. Please do not make a mistake." This black shadow was able to reach foundation establishment in the dangerous cultivation world. He was not a fool and would not believe his nonsense. Even if he really handed over the Qing River carp, he would only be beaten to death. It was better not to hand it over. These people were afraid of hurting the Qing River carp and did not dare to fight with all their might. He still had a chance to escape. The black shadow directly attacked a cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment. That person resisted with all his might, but the others just stood by and did not help. The black shadow sneered. He had already expected that this group of people could not wait for the others to be killed, so that he could take the Qing River carp for himself. It was impossible for them to work together. This gave him a chance to escape. After a while, the cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment could not resist and escaped on his sword. The black shadow did not chase after him and continued to attack the next target. This happened again and again. 5 or 6 cultivators in the early and middle stage of foundation establishment were injured and left. There were also 2 who would rather die than leave and were killed. The remaining cultivators in the early and middle stage of foundation establishment did not dare to get too close. The encirclement became very loose. The black shadow chose another cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment as his target. After defeating him, he did not choose the next target. Instead, he swooped down with all his strength. This scene made the besieging people a little confused. According to the routine, the black shadow should choose the next target and beat him to death. Everyone was concentrating on defense to avoid being the target. Who knew that this person did not act according to the routine and did not stop him in time. By the time they reacted, the black shadow had already descended more than 10 feet. Everyone immediately chased after him. The black shadow threw out a magic longsword. When everyone got close to the longsword, the magic weapon instantly exploded. Everyone's pursuit came to a halt, and the black shadow took the opportunity to fall into the clear stream. Although Xueqi was called a stream, the amount of water in the stream was not small. The surface of the stream was 2 to 3 li wide, and the depth was 4 to 5 zhang. With such a large amount of water, if a foundation establishment cultivator wanted to hide, it would be impossible for other cultivators of the same level to catch him. Most of the pursuers angrily threw a few spells at the clear stream sect. After seeing that it was useless, they let out a long sigh and left on their swords. A few people were still unwilling to give up and continued to search in the water, but it was useless. Only if a Zifu disciple was present, and the black shadow hadn't run too far away would they be able to find it. The sun rose from the east and the red clouds filled the sky. A cultivator flew towards the old square on his sword and landed in the backyard of the Jade Spring General Store. It was the Wang clan's patriarch, Wang Jian. Yesterday, Wang Jida sent the news of Wang Daoyuan catching a clear river carp back to the clan. Wang Jian immediately gathered the clan elders to discuss how to deal with this matter. The elders had different opinions and wrangled for a long time without coming to a conclusion. In the end, the patriarch made the decision to give the clear river carp to the Netherworld sect. After making the decision, Wang Jian sent a letter to the Yang clan's ancestor, Yang Yong. Through Yang Yong, he conveyed his intention to give the clear river carp to the Netherworld sect. Yang Yong was the Wang clan's backer in the Netherworld sect. He was over 350 years old and had a mid-stage Zifu disciple cultivation. The Wang clan had been suppressed by the Netherworld sect's direct descendants for 300 years. The reason why the Wang clan was able to stand tall was because of this elder. The reason why the Wang clan was able to climb up this big tree was also because of the legacy left behind by their ancestors. 300 years ago, Yang Yong had a fortuitous encounter and successfully reached foundation establishment at a young age. At that time, most loose cultivators idolized Wang Qingzu, and Yang Yong was no exception. He also planned to follow Wang Qingzu's path, killing demonic beasts to make a name for himself and obtain the recognition of the royal Zhao clan. When he was killing demonic beasts in the Sky Chop mountain range, he accidentally provoked a pack of dark cloud wolves.
An adult dark cloud wolf was a peak rank 1 demonic beast, and the wolf king was a rank 2 demonic beast. With the wolf king's dark cloud wolf pack, even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator would have to retreat. Not to mention Yang Yong, who had just reached foundation establishment. He was surrounded by the wolf pack and was about to collapse. Coincidentally, Wang Chengzu was hunting in the mountains and passed by here, saving Yang Yong. Wang Chengzu had saved Yang Yong's life, and Yang Yong knew how to repay the favor. After the Wang clan fell into trouble, Yang Yong actively mediated for the Wang clan and saved the Wang clan. For 300 years, the Wang clan sent elders to visit Yang Yong every year and gave him generous gifts. The Wang and Yang clans, from cultivators to mortals, intermarried constantly. Even Wang Xiang's mother was a member of the Yang clan. When Yang Yong received Wang Xian's letter, he immediately reported it to the Netherworld Sect's sect master. The sect master didn't pay too much attention to this matter. After all, the clear river carp didn't have much practical use and was only worth some spirit stones. Since the incident happened in Clear Glass City, the sect master handed the matter over to Elder Zhou, who was guarding Clear Glass City, to handle. However, Elder Zhou was in closed-door cultivation and didn't receive the letter. Wang Xian rushed to Clear Glass City early to visit Elder Zhou, but he was also rejected. It wasn't until Yang Yong arrived and called Elder Zhou out of the closed-door cultivation room that Wang Xian saw Elder Zhou. By the time he finished discussing the matter of offering the Clear River Carp and rushed to Jade Spring General Store, it was already the next morning. When Wang Xian learned about what happened last night from Wang Zhida, he was also shocked. If the Clear River Carp was really snatched away, the Netherworld sect would be furious, and the Wang clan would be in big trouble. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan and Wang Zhida secretly replaced the Clear River Carp and diverted the attention of the cultivators who were snatching the treasure. Otherwise, Jade Spring General Store and Pill Seal Pavilion would be finished. Just when Wang Xian was still in shock, Elder Zhou and Yang Yong brought several Netherworld Sect Foundation establishment disciples to Jade Spring General Store. At this time, Liang Clan's clan head Liang Jiaxing also came uninvited, but his complexion didn't look good, as if he had suffered heavy internal injuries. Wang Xian and Wang Zhida greeted Elder Zhou and Yang Yong. After the greeting, Elder Zhou said, "The Wang clan is deeply righteous and took the initiative to offer the Clear River Carp. Lord Sect Head is very happy and gave me full authority to handle this matter. He also said that he would reward the Wang clan well." Wang Xian hurriedly thanked. "As a subordinate clan of the Netherworld Sect, offering the Clear River Carp is our duty. We dare not ask for a reward." Liang Jiaxing said in a strange tone, "Why did I hear that a foundation establishment cultivator broke into Pill Seal Pavilion last night, injured the kid who caught the fish and snatched the Clear River Carp? The Wang clan lost the Clear River Carp and even shamelessly wanted to offer it to the Netherworld Sect to cheat a reward. How should they be punished?" Wang Zhida asked back. "May I ask how clan head Liang knew that someone snatched the Clear River Carp?" Liang Jiaxing said contemptuously, "Such a big commotion last night, how could I not know? Since you knew, why didn't you help?" Wang Zhida asked again, "Could it be that clan head Liang wants the Clear River Carp to be snatched away by someone else or for your own, and you don't want my Wang clan to hand it over to the Netherworld Sect?" Liang Jiaxing was speechless. Wang Zhida said what was in his heart. After holding it in for a long time, he could only weakly reply, "How would I know that the Wang clan wants to hand the Clear River Carp over to the Netherworld Sect?" After Wang Zhida gained the upper hand, he didn't continue to pursue, so as not to annoy Elder Zhou. Elder Zhou also knew a little about the grudges between the Wang and Liang clans, but as an outsider, he didn't need to get involved. However, he was too lazy to listen to their bickering, so he asked, "Is the Clear River Carp still in the Wang clan's hands?" Chapter 16. Wang Zhida replied, "Of course it's still there, but it was hidden by Daoyuan. In order to keep it a secret, only he knows where it is. Last night, Daoyuan was seriously injured and unconscious, so I don't know where it is. Do you want me to wake Daoyuan up and ask?" Yang Yong waved his hand and said, "No need, I'll find out after I investigate." With Yang Yong's divine sense cultivation, even if someone were to dig 3 feet into the ground, they wouldn't be able to hide from him. Soon, he found the hiding place of the Qing River Carps. The group came to Wang Daoyuan's cave residence. Wang Zhida saw that Wang Daoyuan was still sleeping, so he woke him up and pretended to scold him. "Down, quickly get up and greet Elder Zhou and Elder Yang." Wang Daoyuan got up with difficulty and saluted everyone. "Greetings, Elder Zhou, Ancestor Yang, and all the seniors." Yang Yong asked curiously, "You're the little guy who caught the Qing River carps? Why don't you call me Elder Yang, but Ancestor Yang?" Wang Daoyuan replied respectfully, "Ancestor Yang, my mother's surname is Yang. Although she's immortal, she's also a descendant of Ancestor Yang, so I call you Ancestor." "I didn't expect you to be my descendant." Yang Yong stroked his beard and laughed, then took out a jade pendant. "You called me Ancestor, so I can't not give you something. This is a defensive magic tool that can withstand an all-out attack from an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator and can be used repeatedly. It's the first time I meet a descendant, so consider it a greeting gift." This was a low-grade Tier 2 defensive magic tool. Wang Daoyuan repeatedly thanked him and accepted the jade pendant. Then Wang Daoyuan, with the help of Wang Jida, dug out the Qing River carps and handed them to the two elders. Elder Zhou observed for a while and said, "It's slender and long like a carp, with long whiskers and a long tail, fins like streamers, and layers of scales." "That's right. It's the Qing River carps." "Elder Yang, you've seen the Qing River carps before. What do you think?" Yang Yong also nodded. "That's right, it's indeed the Qing River carps, one male and one female. Since there are no mistakes, and the sect master has given Elder Zhou full authority to deal with it, I won't interfere. Elder Yang is too polite. If it weren't for Elder Yang's message, this task wouldn't have fallen into my lap." Elder Zhou's face was filled with joy. The Wang family has done a meritorious service by offering the Clear River carps. This elder will make the decision to give the Wang family a shop belonging to the Netherworld sect on the east side of the Jade Spring Alchemy Seal Pavilion as a reward. Wang Jian and Wang Jida were overjoyed and thanked him repeatedly. Elder Zhou waved his hand and said, "I haven't finished speaking, don't be in such a hurry to thank me." Since the Qing River carp could only survive in the upper reaches of the Qingli River, it was useless to bring it back to the Netherworld sect. The Wang family's ancestors had experience in rearing Qing River carp, and it was located at the source of Qingli River, so it was suitable for Qing River carp to live. I've decided that the Wang family will raise the Qing River carps on behalf of the Netherworld sect. The Qing River carps will be under the direct management of the Netherworld sect's Qingli market. When these two Qing River carps multiply in the future, the Netherworld sect will take 80% of them. I wonder if the Wang family is willing? Wang Jian was overjoyed. Although he helped the Netherworld sect raise the Qing River carps and had 80% of them taken away, the profit was very small, but this time, he had a position in the Netherworld sect. It could be said that he had entered the Netherworld sect system. In the future, the Wang family would be part of the Netherworld sect. In the future, once the Wang family had a foundation establishment clansman who joined the Netherworld sect, they could be counted as a direct descendant of the Netherworld sect. Even in this kind of situation, the Liang family could no longer suppress the Wang family openly. Moreover, once an important figure of the Wang family was plotted against, they could also ask the Netherworld sect for help. Although it might not be practical, for those who wanted to deal with the Wang family, it was also a kind of deterrence. Wang Jian thanked Elder Zhou again and again, showing his loyalty to the Netherworld sect. After that, the Qing River carps were escorted back to the Jade Spring Peak by Elder Zhou and Wang Jian, where they were raised in the Jade Dragon Spring. This was also to tell the surrounding forces that the Qing River carps belonged to the Netherworld sect. Whoever dared to snatch them would be snatching food from the Netherworld sect's mouth. After that, someone went to the Wang family store to inquire about the result of the Qing River carp's disposal. The Wang family people also told the whole story, dispelling some people's thoughts. The people of the Netherworld sect followed Yang Yong back to the Netherworld sect's stronghold in the Clear Glass Market. Liang Jiaxing also snorted coldly, flicked his sleeves, and left. Although the Netherworld sect was not a good person, if they could get the Netherworld sect's protection and change the Wang family situation of being oppressed and excluded, why not? Wang Daoyuan continued to lie on the bed to heal his injuries, carefully observing the jade pendant that Ancestor Yang gave him. This jade pendant was carved from white jade, with flowers and plants carved on the front and a Yang character on the back. There was nothing special about the pattern. The extraordinary thing was that it contained dense spiritual energy. The amount of spiritual energy was comparable to a second-level low-grade spiritual talisman.
No wonder it could block the full-force attack of an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, it could be used repeatedly, much more valuable than a second-level low-grade defensive spiritual talisman. He was now seriously injured, and his chi and blood were deficient, but he was reluctant to waste his essence blood to make this jade pendant recognize him as its master. He casually put away the jade pendant, and his divine sense entered the space of the spiritual pearl to see if there was anything good on the assassin he killed before. After all, assassins lived a life of licking blood on the edge of the blade. They did not have a fixed residence, and they carried everything with them. An assassin at the 9th level of Chi Disciple, or even the peak, must have a lot of wealth. Except for the black dagger that threatened Wang Daoyuan, this assassin only had a storage bag and a spiritual beast bag. Because the space of the spiritual pearl was a top-level space treasure, it was equivalent to a small world. Low and high-level space treasures in the space of the spiritual pearl were essentially the same as in the outside big world. Therefore, Wang Daoyuan could put the storage bag in the space of the spiritual pearl. If an interspatial ring was put in the storage bag, it would directly explode. If a storage bag was put in an interspatial ring, it would also explode because the space suppression of the interspatial ring was not strong enough. For low or high-level space treasures, if a storage bag or an interspatial ring was put in the other, both space treasures would be destroyed. The strategy of putting one storage bag or interspatial ring on top of another would not work. Only the space of the spiritual pearl was an exception. Opening the storage bag, the harvest made Wang Daoyuan speechless. There were more than 800 low-grade spirit stones, and one mid-grade spirit stone, which was equivalent to more than 900 low-grade spirit stones. In addition, there were a few first-level upper-grade spirit talismans, which Wang Daoyuan could refine himself, so he did not care. There were more than a dozen elixirs for healing, detoxification, and restoring spirit energy, but there was not a single elixir for improving cultivation. It seemed that this assassin's cultivation was at the peak of Chi Disciple, so it was meaningless to eat elixirs for improving cultivation. In addition, there was a jade slip, a knight suit, a black iron token, and not a single magic weapon. It seems that this assassin was saving spirit stones to build his foundation. He sold everything that could be sold. Wang Daoyuan murmured. This jade slip recorded a spell. Invisibility spell. Of course, it was not a profound spell. It could only deceive cultivators below the foundation establishment stage, and it could only deceive cultivators who had not practiced the Heavenly Eye spell. It was estimated that it was not worth much, so it was not sold. There was nothing extraordinary about the token. On one side, there were strange patterns like words, but Wang Daoyuan could not recognize them. On the other side, there were the words, blood shadow. It was estimated that it was the token of a certain force. Wang Daoyuan had never heard of any force with the words, blood shadow in its name. Although there were no useful treasures, secret methods, or the like, these spirit stones were very considerable. It was enough for Wang Daoyuan to cultivate to the late stage of Chi Disciple. He put away the storage bag and took out the spirit beast bag. This spirit beast bag was much more advanced than the one Wang Zhida gave him. Maybe there was a big guy in it. It just so happened that Wang Daoyuan had accumulated spirit grains. It would be good if he could raise a spirit beast with superior combat power to protect himself. Wang Daoyuan opened the spirit beast pouch full of expectations. There wasn't any tall and mighty spirit beast that Wang Daoyuan had imagined. There were only 20 or so rank 1 low-grade spirit bees, a fist-sized beehive, and a dead queen bee. As soon as these spirit bees came out of the spirit beast bag, they immediately lifted the beehive, hung it on the roof of the thatched hut, and then flew to the spirit grains that were blooming. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 17. For any force, raising spirit bees was like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Spirit bees didn't need to consume any resources. Instead, they could produce extremely valuable spirit honey. Spirit bees could pollinate spirit herbs and spirit medicines, increasing their production. Spirit bees were poisonous and were extremely powerful helpers in fights of magical powers. Since discovering the space of the spirit pearl, Wang Daoyuan had the idea of raising spirit bees. The main purpose was to obtain spirit honey. Unfortunately, spirit bees were too rare. There were only 2 ways to obtain them. One was to obtain them from the force that had spirit bees, but no force had ever sold them. It would set up competitors and they could only snatch them. The second was to find wild bees. Wild bees were usually in the depths of the mountains and were not easy to find. Moreover, the fighting power of the bee colony was very strong. The Wang family could not do these two ways, let alone Wang Daoyuan alone. These spirit bees could be said to be a good thing, but unfortunately, the queen bee was dead. Without a queen bee, the bee colony could not reproduce and could only gradually die out. If there were still bee eggs in the hive, it was possible to breed a new queen bee. Unfortunately, the hive had the effect of blocking the detection of divine sense. He could not determine whether there were bee eggs in the hive, nor could he open the hive to take a look. If there were bee eggs, it would be over. He could only let the bee colony fend for itself. However, he had never seen this kind of spirit bee before. In his family's book collection, he also introduced several common spirit bees, but they were different from this spirit bee. These spirit bees had more slender bodies and wings, and their flying speed was faster. Since he did not know what kind of spirit bee it was, he would temporarily call it long-tailed bee. If he could breed a new queen bee, with the space's 10 times faster time flow, Wang Daoyuan would really be rich. After counting the spoils of war, his divine sense withdrew from the space. Inspired by the previous spirit rice fishing, Wang Daoyuan thought of a way to solve the problem of spirit rice backlog, breeding spirit beasts. However, he could not raise cattle, sheep, rabbits and other animals that like to eat spirit herbs. Otherwise, if he put them into the space of the spirit pearl, they would ruin the spirit herbs in the spirit fields. The most reliable way was to raise spirit fish. After all, spirit fish could only stay in the water and could not go to the spirit fields, let alone ruin the spirit herbs. As for the source of the spirit fish seedlings, with Xueqi and Qingli River at the back, how could there be a lack of seedlings? After recuperating for more than a month, Wang Daoyuan finally recovered. He took out his fishing rod and walked towards the clear stream behind the cave. Walking to the back of the cave, Wang Daoyuan was surprised. The shore of the three-forked estuary was filled with cultivators fishing. Among them were several disciples of the main family. When they saw Wang Daoyuan carrying a fishing rod, they greeted him. Wang Daoyuan walked to the side of a young man who was fishing. After throwing the hook, he said to the young man, "Third brother, what's going on? Why are there so many people fishing today?" The young man's name was Wang Daochong. He was ranked third in the Dao generation and was at the 6th level of Qi disciple. He was steady in his work, neither arrogant nor rash, and his conduct was impeccable. His prestige among his peers was very high, and he was the successor to the clan head after Wang Shui. In addition, he had the best aptitude among his peers, so he was the foundation establishment seed that the clan focused on nurturing. Foundation establishment seeds were usually arranged to stay on the Jade Spring Peak after they reached adulthood to do some things that did not require much effort and put their energy into cultivation. This time, the Wang family obtained another shop, and they were seriously short of manpower. They sent out all the adult disciples, and even Wang Daochong, a seed player, was not spared. Wang Daochong rolled his eyes at Wang Daoyuan and said, "What's going on, don't you know?" Wang Daoyuan chuckled. It was purely a coincidence. These people came for the Qingjiang carps? There are only 2 in a few hundred years. How can it be so coincidental that I can still catch them? Wang Daochong said, "Wealth moves people's hearts. You can catch 2, but think about the others. What if you can catch more? You can't catch them now, but you can't say for sure in the future." Wang Daoyuan did not understand and asked, "What do you mean? What do you mean by catching more in the future? Isn't it because of the 2 Qingjiang carps you caught?" After Taigong's inspection, the female Qingjiang carps laid eggs 4 or 5 days before you caught them. You can catch them in a few years. Wang Daochong replied. Wang Daoyuan was shocked. On the morning he caught the Qingjiang carps, he put them into the space of the spiritual pearl and took them out the next morning. According to the time flow in the spiritual pearl, the Qingjiang carp stayed in the space for 7 or 8 days. Didn't that mean that the Qingjiang carps laid eggs in the space of the spiritual pearl? He suppressed the excitement in his heart and pretended to be regretful. That's a pity. If I had caught them 4 or 5 days earlier, wouldn't I have caught a nest of fry? Wang Daochong saw that he had suffered a great loss and advised, "Nothing is perfect. You are already very lucky to be able to catch the Qingjiang carps. Don't ask for more. Our Wang family has also earned a lot this time. We have another shop, and the clan has decided to open a restaurant." That's right, There's also your reward. The clan head told me to bring it along. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was interested. What reward? 2,000 clan contribution points. Wang Daochong smiled mysteriously. And the clan head and the elder's special care for you. Wang Daoyuan was pleasantly surprised. There's special care? Third brother, don't keep me in suspense. What is it? Wang Daochong cleared his throat. In view of Dao Yuan's great contribution this time, he has also indirectly offended many people. In order to protect Dao Yuan, before his cultivation breaks through to the late stage of Qi disciple, he is not allowed to go out. These are the clan head's original words. Of course, you still have other options. Wang Daoyuan was originally completely disheartened. He didn't expect there to be other options. He hurriedly asked, what options? Return to Jade Spring Peak. Wang Daochong replied. Wang Daoyuan's face darkened. He might as well be confined. In any case, it would be easier to escape. He could also secretly sell the spirit grains to buy some pills and return to Jade Spring Peak. How could he escape under the clan head's nose? Pretend I didn't ask. With a dark face, he turned around and returned to the cave. Wang Daochong laughed heartily when he saw his seventh brother, who had been jumping up and down since childhood, suffer a setback. After returning to the cave, Wang Daoyuan's divine sense immediately entered the space of the spiritual pearl and carefully searched the fish pond. At this time, more than a month had passed since he caught the Qing River carp. In the space, more than a year had passed. Even if the incubation cycle of the spirit fish eggs was long, it should have hatched some fry. After searching for a while, he found 10 fry that were about the size of an embroidery needle. They were strenuously gnawing on a few spirit grains. The Qing River carp, which cost 100,000 spirit stones each, was starved to such a pitiful state. If people knew that Wang Daoyuan had 10 Qing River carps, they would definitely bury him alive. If they knew that he almost starved the Qing River carps to death, they would definitely dig him out and beat him up again. He also didn't know what the Qing River carps liked to eat. Since they were gnawing on the spirit grains, he would feed them the spirit grains. Wang Daoyuan crushed the spirit grains into powder and scattered them into the puddle. The fry swam from the bottom of the water to the surface. After eating a mouthful of the spirit grain powder, they quickly returned to the bottom of the water with a flick of their tails. The 10 fry had a big appetite. After eating 1 or 2 grams of the spirit grain powder, they stopped eating. He then dug a big pit about 10 feet square in the spirit grain field. He threw out a few rain-dissipating talismans and filled the pit with water. Then, he transferred the fry that had eaten their fill. On one hand, he was worried that the pseudo-spirit fish in the fish pond would compete with the fry for food. On the other hand, he was afraid that these fish would eat the fry. The dozen or so fish were just ordinary fish with a little bit of spirit energy. They couldn't even be considered spirit fish. He couldn't affect the healthy growth of the Qing River carp fry for them. Add a chapter this weekend. Please bookmark and recommend. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.